Hey everyone, tonight we are going to walk through the gates of a civilization that looked the Roman Empire in the eye and did unte just blink, but actually charged them a fee for the privilege of making eye contact. We're traveling back to the Horn of Africa, to a superpower that history class often skips over because it does unfit neatly into the toga-wearing narrative we reused to. We are going to witness an economic war, fought not with catapults, but with gold coins, inflation, and market manipulation that would make a modern hedge fund manager sweat. But fair warning, if you think the ancient world was all white marble statues and philosophical debates in the shade, you probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes in the place we're going. It's hot, it smells like fermenting fish sauce and unwashed camel wool, and the sun here will peel your skin off like a ripe banana before you can even ask for a glass of water. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I love picturing these stories playing out in living rooms and night shifts all over the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are standing on a wooden dock that feels like it's vibrating. The wood beneath your sandals is ancient, soaked in seawater and oil, polished smooth by millions of feet over hundreds of years. The air is thick, a physical weight pressing down on your shoulders, carrying the scent of salt, drying shark meat, and the heavy sweet perfume of frankincense burning in a warehouse nearby. You are in Ajolis, the great lung through which the Aksumite Empire breathes, located on the coast of what you'd know as modern-day Eritrea. To your left, the Red Sea stretches out like a sheet of hammered copper under the midday sun. To your right, the dusty, chaotic sprawl of one of antiquity's most vital cities rises up to meet the heat. You take a step forward, trying to navigate the crowd, and immediately get shoved by a stevedore carrying a sack of grain that probably weighs more than you do. He yells something in Ge'ez, but you hear snippets of Greek, Sabian, Aramaic, and even Latin swirling around you in a polyglot soup. This isn't a quiet outpost. This is the Times Square of the ancient world. If Times Square traded neon signs for ivory tusks and smelled significantly more like donkey manure, you weave through the stacks of cargo. There are crates of olive oil from the Mediterranean, amphorae of wine from Italy, and bundles of silk that have traveled all the way from China, passing through so many hands that the price has tripled by the time it hit this dock. But what's leaving the port is even more impressive. You watch a team of workers hoisting a cage onto a ship bound for Alexandria. Inside, a cheetah paces nervously, its spots flashing in the sunlight. Next to it, massive crates of tortoiseshell are being tallied by a scribe who looks bored out of his mind, scratching marks onto a parchment with the enthusiasm of a DMV employee on a Friday afternoon. It's easy to think of Rome as the center of the universe during this period. Let's say we roughly in the 3rd century A debut. Standing here, you get a very different perspective. The Romans here aren't the conquerors, they are the customers. You spot a group of them huddled near a customs house, looking sweaty and uncomfortable in their tunics, arguing with a local official. They look small here. They're haggling over the tax on a shipment of glass beads, and they are losing the argument. The Aksumite official, dressed in cool white linen with a heavy gold cross, swinging from his neckcore, perhaps a symbol of the old gods. Marum or Behor, depending on the exact year of your arrival, isn't intimidated. He knows who holds the cards. You walk past them, deeper into the port city. The architecture is distinct, blocky, solid, built to last. The foundations are massive granite stones, fitted together without mortar, a technique that screams, "We aren't going anywhere." Historians still argue whether Agilis started as a small local market that got lucky, or was a planned colony established by the inland capital to strangle the Red Sea trade. But looking at the sheer scale of the infrastructure, it feels planned. There are cisterns for water, wide avenues for caravans, and specialized zones for different types of goods. It's organized chaos. You pause by a stall selling street food. A woman is grilling skewered meat over charcoal, brushing it with a spice paste that makes your eyes water just from the smell. It's Berber, or the ancient ancestor of Itafiri, reminder that you are at the crossroads of the spice trade. You grab a skewer, tossing a small copper coin to the vendor. She bites it to check the metal, gives you a skeptical look that suggests you look like you'd defaint if you ate real food, and waves you on. As you choots goat, probably, and spicy enough to wake the dead you, notice something strange about the flow of money here. In most ports, you'd see Roman aurei or Persian derricks changing hands. And you do see those, but you also see something else. Local merchants are using small silver and gold discs stamped with a face you don't recognize. It's a profile of a ruler, flanked by stalks of wheat. This is a big deal. In the ancient world, minting your own high-quality coins is the geopolitical equivalent of having nuclear weapons. It says, "We don't need your economy. We are the economy." You wander toward the edge of the port, where the caravans assemble for the journey inland. This is where the sea trade transforms into land trade. Hundreds of camels are kneeling in the dust, groaning and spitting with that unique camel attitude that suggests they hate every single one of you. They are being loaded with salt blocks, iron bars, and those precious luxury goods from the ships. The destination is Aksum, the capital city high in the mountains, cooler, greener, and safer than this sweltering coast. You see a crate break open near a camel, spilling its contents. It's not gold or jewels, but giraffe tails. Yes, giraffe tails. You might think that's a weird thing to ship internationally, but in this era, they are highly prized in Egypt and Rome as fly whisksa, status symbol for the wealthy who are too important to swat their own bugs. It's a reminder that global trade has always been driven by the bizarre whims of the rich. You watch a merchant frantically scoop them up, yelling at his slaves, terrified of losing even one precious tail in the dirt. The sun is starting to dip, casting long orange shadows across the docks. The heat breaks just a fraction, and a breeze rolls in off the water. It's a deceptive piece. You are standing at the entry point of an empire that Mahoney, the Persian prophet, listed as one of the 4 great powers of the world, right alongside Rome, Persia, and China. Yet, looking around, you sense a tension. The Romans at the customs house are looking a little more desperate than usual. The local guards are a little more heavily armed. There is a rumor floating through the market, whispered between sailors and caravan drivers. It's about the throne. The old king is dead, or dying, or perhaps just conveniently indisposed. The succession is murky. Usually, this means civil war, a drop in the currency, and a good time for pirates to raid the coast. But the ships are still docking. The tax collectors are still collecting. The gold is still flowing. Someone is holding the reins, and their grip is terrifyingly tight. You make your way to a tavern overlooking the harbor. It's a mud brick structure with a palm thatch roof filled with the smoke of oil lamps. You find a corner and sit watching the harbor below. The ship's lanterns are starting to flicker on, reflecting in the dark water. From here, you can see the vast network of trade routes radiating out like spiderwebs north to Egypt and Rome, east to India and Ceylon, south to the Swahili coast. You realize that whoever controls this port controls the luxury tap of the Mediterranean. If someone were to decide that Rome had to pay double for its ivory, or that the supply of gold was going to be cut off, the Eternal City wouldn't be able to do much about it. Rome is thousands of miles away, overextended, and hungry for luxury. It can't produce itself. Aksum is right here, sitting on the source. As you finish your drink a thick barley beer that tastes like liquid bread, you overhear a conversation at the next table. A Greek merchant is complaining to his partner. He says the exchange rates have changed again. The customs office is demanding payment in Aksumite gold, refusing Roman silver. He sounds panicked. "She's changing the rules," he whispers. "The regent is changing the rules." You lean back against the rough wall. The regent, that's the shadow you're looking for. You Dan, Tino her name, yet few, do boot. You can feel her influence in the weight of the coins, the efficiency of the guards, and the nervous sweat on the Roman merchant's forehead. You are about to leave the coast and head inland, up the steep, treacherous escarpment to the highlands. To find out who exactly has the audacity to tell the Roman Empire that their money is no good here, you leave the sticky heat of the coast behind and start the climb. And when I say climb, I don't mean a gentle uphill stroll. I mean you are ascending the Ethiopian highlands, a geological fortress that rises thousands of feet into the sky. Your ears pop, the air thins, and the temperature drops from broil to pleasant spring afternoon in the span of a few harrowing hours on a donkey that seems to have a death wish. The landscape changes from scrubland to lush green terraces. You see farmers working the soil with oxen using plows that look surprisingly advanced for the time. This is the breadbasket, or rather, the teff basket of the empire. Teff is this tiny, ancient grain that's been fueling these people for millennia. And if you've never had injera, that spongy, sour flatbread, you are missing out on one of life's great edible utensils. Finally, you crest a ridge, and there it is. Aksum. It's not a sprawling, chaotic mess like Rome. It's orderly. It's majestic. You see massive stone palaces and those famous obelisks, or stelae, rising up like stone needles trying to puncture the clouds. But you aren't here for the sightseeing tour. You're here to find the power source. You bypass the main temples and head straight for the royal compound. The Palace of Dungaror, at least. The structure that stands where Dungar will later be famous. Inside, the atmosphere is weirdly hushed. You expect the noise of a royal court, trumpets, shouting guards, sycophants, laughing too hard at bad jokes. Instead, it sounds like a library. The stone corridors are cool and dim, lit by oil lamps that smell of refined olive oil, not the cheap animal fat used down at the port. You're led into a side chamber, not the main throne room, and there she is, the silent regent. Let's call her Safia, though the historical records are frustratingly vague on her name, often just referring to her as the Queen Mother or the guardian of the Child King. She isn't sitting on a golden chair. She's sitting at a wide table made of polished juniper wood, and she is buried under a mountain of papyrus scrolls and clay tablets. She looks up as you enter. She's striking hair braided and complex, tight rows adorned with gold beads, eyes that are sharp, assessing, and utterly unimpressed by your presence. She doesn't look like a warrior queen. She doesn't have a sword strapped to her hip. She has something far more dangerous in her hand, a stylus. You watch as a high-ranking general strides into the room. He's a big guy, wearing a leopard skin cloak that marks him as elite nobility. He looks like he crushes rocks with his forehead for fun. He slams a fist on the table, demanding more funds for a border skirmish in the north. He talks about glory, about honor, about the legacy of the late king. Safia doesn't flinch. She doesn't even blink. She just waits for him to finish his testosterone-fueled speech. Then, she looks down at a scroll. "General," she says, her voice quiet but carrying perfectly in the stone room. "According to these logs, you requested funds for 300 new spears last month, yet the inventory at the Northern Armory shows no new arrivals. However, I did notice your wife was seen wearing a very expensive new necklace of Baltic amber at the festival yesterday." The room goes so quiet, you can hear a gecko scuttle across the ceiling. The general turns a shade of purple that clashes horribly with his leopard skin. He stammers. He tries to bluster. She cuts him off with a wave of her hand. The funds are denied. "And, General, if you lose a single foot of territory, I will audit your personal estates next." Dismissed, he leaves, looking significantly smaller than when he entered. This is how she rules, not with fear of the executioner's axe, but with fear of the auditor's pen. This is the hidden story of the Regency. When her husband died, the court vultures circled. They assumed they could sideline the grieving widow and use her young son, the future king, Azania, as a puppet. They thought she would be busy with mourning rituals or weaving. Big mistake. While they were arguing over who got to sit at the head of the table, she seized control of the one thing that actually mattered, the bureaucracy. Historians still argue whether Safia was officially a regent in the Roman legal sense, or if she simply exerted informal influence that hardened into absolute power. But looking at the way the scribes scurry around her, terrified of making a math error, the distinction feels academic. She is the boss. She gestures for you to come closer. You look at the documents on her table. They aren't battle plans. They are trade manifests. She's tracking everything. The flow of ivory from the interior, the tortoise shells from the coast, the incense from the highlands. She's building a mental map of the world economy. She points to a map of the Red Sea. Rome is hungry, she tells you, tracing the line up to Egypt. They have spent too much. Their silver is mixing with copper. Their emperors are bought and sold by their own guards. They are weak. She looks at you with a glint in her eye. Weakness is an opportunity. If we control the gold, we control the value of everything they buy. We don't need to conquer their land. We just need to own their debt. This is the moment you realize the scope of her ambition. Most ancient rulers wanted land. They wanted to paint the map their color. Safia understands something far more modern, soft power. She realizes that Aksum sits on a choke point of global trade. If she can professionalize the state, streamline the taxes, and guarantee the safety of merchants, she can drain the wealth of the Mediterranean into her own vaults. You watch as she calls over a scribe. She dictates a letter to the governor of Agelis. It's not a poetic decree, it's a set of instructions on harbor fees. She's raising the tariff on Roman ships by 2%, but lowering it for Indian merchants. It's a calculated move. She's diversifying her portfolio, making Aksum less dependent on Rome, while simultaneously squeezing them for more cash. There's a quirky detail you notice in the corner of the room: a small monkey, a vervet, tethered by a silver chain. It's eating grapes from a silver bowl. Every now and then, Sophia pauses, feeds the monkey a grape, and strokes its head. It's the only time her face softens. It's a reminder that even the Iron Lady of Africa needs a confidant who one T tried to assassinate her. As the sun sets, casting long shadows through the pillarland windows, the work doesn't stop. The scribes light more lamps, the scrolls keep coming. You realize that while the boy King Azana is likely playing with toy soldiers in the nursery, his mother is meticulously constructing the economic engine that will allow him to become the greatest conqueror in Aksumite history. She is building the weapon he will wield. But there's a problem on the horizon, a big one. The currency used in international trade is still largely Roman. The aureus is the standard. As long as Aksum uses Roman coins or unminted bullion, they are playing by Rome's rules. They are passengers in the Roman economy. Safia stands up, stretching her back. She walks to the window and looks out over the city. You join her. The fires of the metalworkers are glowing in the lower districts. They trust the face of the Caesar, she murmurs, almost to herself, because they think he is a god. She turns to you, and the look on her face gives you chills. What happens, do you think, if we give them a new face to trust? A face that is pure gold, not debased alloy. She's already planning the next move. She's not just going to tax the trade, she's going to hijack the medium of exchange itself. She is going to do the one thing Rome 1T forgive. She is going to print her own money. But that's a dangerous game. To mint a coin is to claim equality with the emperor. It's an act of war that doesn't require a single soldier to cross a border. As you walk out of the palace, leaving the silent regent to her ledgers and her monkey, you have a feeling that things are about to get very expensive for everyone involved. You leave the cool, calculated atmosphere of the palace and head back out into the sun. But this time, you aren't going down to the coast. You're going deeper. You're heading south and west into the rugged, folded hills that form the spine of the empire. You're looking for the source. Because all those grand plans in the palace, all those ledgers and tariffs, they don't mean a thing if the vaults are empty. You need to see where the gold actually comes from. The journey is brutal. The roads here aren't the paved highways of the capital. They are goat tracks clinging to the side of cliffs that drop away into misty abysses. You're riding a mule that seems to have a personal vendetta against gravity, slipping on loose shale every few minutes just to keep your heart rate up. Your guide is a man named Caleb, a taciturn fellow who speaks only when absolutely necessary and carries a spear with a tip that looks suspiciously like it's been dipped in poison. He doesn't like visitors. No one out here does. This is a restricted zone. The Aksumite state protects its gold sources with a paranoia that would make the CIA look like an open book club. After 3 days of riding, you descend into a valley that feels prehistoric. The vegetation is dense, tangled, and humid. The air buzzes with insects that look large enough to carry off a small dog. You hear the rush of water, a tributary of the Blue Nile, perhaps, or one of the seasonal rivers that flush gold out of the mountains. You dismount and walk toward the riverbank, and there it is. The scene is industrial in scale, but primitive in method. Hundreds of people are knee-deep in the water, bent over, rhythmic, and relentless. They are washing the soil. But this isn't just panning for flakes. You see complex sluice gates built from wood and stone, diverting the river's flow. You see men smashing quartz rocks with heavy iron hammers, pulverizing the stone into dust. This is hard, back-breaking labor. The noise is deafening: the crash of water, the crack of hammers, the shouting of overseers. Caleb points to a group of workers near a cave entrance. Slaves, he grunts. From the wars in the west, you look closer. They are covered in dust, their eyes white and staring, in faces masked by grime. They are bringing out baskets of ore from deep underground tunnels. These mines are dangerous. The tunnels are narrow, prone to collapse, and poorly ventilated. It's a dark reminder that the glitter of empire is always paid for in human misery. But here's the quirky part that catches your eye. You see a group of traders arriving at the edge of the camp. They aren't Aksumite officials. They are locals from a tribe known as the Egg. They are carrying carcasses of oxen. You watch, confused. Is this lunch? No, it's business. This is the silent trade that ancient geographers like Cosmas Indicoplesis wrote about. It's a bizarre ritual. The traders lay out the meat and salt blocks, then retreat. The gold miners come out from their hidden villages, inspect the goods, and leave a pile of gold nuggets next to the pile they want. They retreat. The traders come back. If the gold is enough, they take it and leave the meat. If not, they leave everything and retreat again, waiting for the miners to add more gold. Not a word is spoken. No haggling, no handshake. It's a trust-based system born out of mutual suspicion and the absolute necessity of the commodity. The miners want protein and salt. The traders want gold. It works. You see an Aksumite official overseeing this, taking a cut of every transaction. This is the genius of the system. The state doesn't just run its own mines. It taxes the independent producers too. They have monopolized the flow. Every nugget that comes out of this ground eventually finds its way to the capital. Caleb nudges you and points to a smaller, heavily guarded tent. The dust, he whispers. You walk over. Inside, you see scribes weighing gold dust on delicate scales. This is the raw currency of the region. Before coins, gold dust was money. But it's messy. It spills. It's easy to adulterate mix in some brass filings. And who would know? This is the problem Safia is trying to solve. You can't build a global banking system on bags of dust. You need standardization. You need trust. Historians still argue about exactly how much gold Aksum produced annually. Some estimates are staggering, suggesting they rivaled the output of the Roman mines in Spain. Others are more conservative. But standing here, watching the sheer volume of yellow metal being poured into leather sacks, you tend to believe the higher numbers. The riverbeds here seem to bleed gold. You pick up a nugget that fell near your boot. It's heavy, dense, and warm from the sun. It feels like power, but in this form, it's just a rock. It has value, sure, but it has no identity. It doesn't carry a message. Suddenly, a commotion breaks out near the sluice gates. A worker has tried to pocket a nugget literally, swallowing it. The guards are on him instantly. It's brutal and swift. You turn away, reminded that this monopoly is enforced with blood. The message is clear. The gold belongs to the throne. To steal it is to steal from the gods themselves. Caleb looks at you with a grim smile. The queen's eyes are everywhere, he says, even in the mud. You leave the valley with a heavy feeling in your gut. You've seen the raw material. You've seen the sweat and the violence that pulls it from the earth. Now you understand the foundation. This isn't just about clever accounting in the palace. It's about a ruthless extraction machine that turns the geology of Africa into political leverage. As you ride back up the escarpment, the air cooling around you, you realize that Safia isn't just sitting on a pile of money, she's sitting on a loaded gun. The Romans have mines, yes, but their veins are running dry. Their economy is based on expansion, on looting new territories. Aksum's economy is based on production. They are creating new wealth every day, and that wealth is heading to the mint. You can almost feel the momentum shifting. The dust you saw being weighed in that tent is about to be melted down, purified, and stamped with an image that will travel further than any Aksumite army ever could. You camp that night under a sky so full of stars it looks like spilled milk. You're shivering a bit, despite the fire. You're thinking about that Roman envoy you saw back at the port, the one arguing over glass beads. He has no idea what's coming. He has no idea that high in these mountains, the ground itself is conspiring against his emperor. Tomorrow, we see the transformation. We see the alchemy that turns this raw, bloody metal into the most sophisticated propaganda tool of the ancient world. You descend from the wild Goldrick Hills and return to the ordered streets of the capital. The dust of the mines is still in your hair, but the atmosphere here is different. It's cleaner, sharper. You re-heading to a building that is arguably more important than the palace or the temple, the Royal Mint. This isn't a dark, smoky forge like the ones where they make swords. This is a high-tech facility by ancient standards. It's a series of secure courtyards with high walls patrolled by guards who don't look like they accept bribes. The air smells of charcoal and molten metal, a metallic Thames that coats the back of your throat. You slip inside, thanks to your invisible narrator privileges, and watch the process. It's an assembly line. In one corner, workers are refining the gold dust you saw earlier. They are heating it, skimming off the impurities, doing the metallurgical magic required to get it to that crucial high purity level. Aksumite gold coins were famous for their consistency. While Rome was secretly debasing its currency mixing in copper and led to stretch, the supply Aksum was keeping it pure. It was a flex. It was a statement of integrity in a world of financial fraud. But the real action is in the center of the room. This is where the decators work. These are the finest artisans in the empire. They are hunched over small anvils, carving intricate designs into hardened iron dies. You lean over the shoulder of an old master. He's carving a face. It's a profile, distinct and regal. He's working on the nose now, getting the curve just right. This isn't a generic face, it's a portrait, and around the edge, he's carving letters. But here's the kicker, he's carving them in Greek. Why Greek? Why not GS, the local language? Because this coin isn't for the locals, it's an export product. Greek is the lingua franca of international trade, the English of the ancient world. By using Greek, Sofia is making sure that every merchant from Alexandria to India can read the message. And the message is simple. King Indubis, or perhaps Aphelis, depending on the exact year of this transition. But the subtext is louder. We are your equals. You watch as the die is finished. It's clamped into place. A worker places a blank disc of hot gold onto the anvil. Another worker swings a heavy hammer. Clang. The first face is struck. The worker uses tongs to pick up the coin and tosses it into a cooling bath. You fish it out carefully. It's still hot. You hold it up to the light. It's small, lighter than you expect, but it radiates power. On one side, the king's head, wearing a headcloth tied with a ribbon, flanked by 2 stalks of wheat. The wheat is a brilliant touch. It symbolizes the fertility of the land, the agricultural wealth that backs the gold. On the flip side, another image of the ruler, but there's a detail here that makes historians scratch their heads. On top of the king's head, there's a crescent and a disc symbols of the old pagan gods. This is before the conversion to Christianity. It's a reminder that this economic revolution started under the old faith. The gods of the sun and moon are literally backing the currency. You look around the room, there are baskets filling up with these coins, hundreds of them, thousands. This is the moment the Aksumite economy decouples from Rome. Before this, they had to weigh gold dust for every transaction or use Roman coins and accept the emperor's valuation. Now, they have a unit of account. They can set prices. They can pay soldiers. They can give gifts to foreign dignitaries that double as propaganda. Imagine the audacity of this. It's like a small country today suddenly deciding to stop using the US dollar and successfully launching a cryptocurrency that everyone actually trusts. It's a direct challenge to the monetary hegemony of the Roman Empire. You see Sofia enter the mint. She's not here to supervise the hammering. She's here to check the quality. She picks up a handful of the new coins, letting them cascade through her fingers like water. The sound, that specific high-pitched chink of pure gold hitting pure gold, is music to her ears. She turns to the mint master. Lighter, she says. He looks confused. Your Highness, make them slightly lighter than the Roman aureus, she commands. This is the genius move. It's called Gresham's Law, though she obviously didn't call it that. Bad money drives out good. But in this case, she's flipping it. By making her coins slightly lighter but of higher purity, she's ensuring they are more convenient for trade. Merchants will prefer them. They are easier to carry, and because the purity is guaranteed, you don't have to test them every time. Plus, it allows her to mint more coins from the same amount of gold. It's an inflation-proof strategy that undercuts the competition. She's playing for D-chess while the Roman emperors are playing checkers. You watch as the first shipment is prepared. Leather sacks are filled, sealed with wax, and stamped with the royal seal. These aren't going into a vault. They are going to the market. They are going to be spent. You follow the shipment out of the mint and back down to the market square of Aksum. A merchant from India is there, looking to sell a bundle of cotton cloth. An Aksumite trader approaches him. Instead of pulling out a scale and a bag of dust, he pulls out a handful of these bright, shiny new coins. The Indian merchant hesitates. He picks one up, he bites it. He looks at the Greek lettering. He smiles. He recognizes the quality. He accepts the payment. That handshake right there is the sound of an empire coming of age. The coin circulates. It moves from the Indian merchant to a Roman wine seller, who takes it back to Egypt, where a tax collector sees it and wonders. Who is this king? And why is his gold better than ours? The coin is a virus. It infects the Roman economy with doubt. It proves that there is another power in the south, a power that is organized, wealthy, and sophisticated. Safia watches from a balcony, her face impassive. She knows that this is just the first step. The coins are out in the wild now. They will travel to places she will never see. They will sit in the treasuries of kings and the pouches of thieves. They will outlast her and her son and the empire itself. You pocket one of the coins, metaphorically of course, because stealing from the silent regent is a bad idea, and flip it in the air. Heads, the king. Tails, the king. Either way, Aksum wins. But the Romans aren't stupid. They will notice, and when they do, they won't be happy. You can practically feel the diplomatic storm clouds gathering over the Red Sea. The envoy we saw at the port, he's about to get a very angry letter from his boss, and he's going to have to come up here and demand answers. That meeting is going to be awkward, and you're going to have a front row seat. You are standing in the reception hall of the Palace of Dungor, and the tension in the room is so thick you could carve it with one of those new gold coins. The air is perfumed with frankincense, drifting from silver braziers, but underneath that holy scent, there is the distinct smell of nervous sweat. It's not coming from the Aksumite guards, who stand like statues carved from obsidian along the walls. It's coming from the man in the center of the room. Meet Lucius. He's a Roman envoy, sent all the way from Alexandria. He's wearing a toga that is impeccably draped, but entirely too heavy for this altitude and heat. He looks like a man who is used to being the most important person in the room, and he is struggling to process the fact that, up here in the thin mountain air, he is just a guest, and a rude one at that. You watch him fidget. He's here because of the coins. Rome has noticed the gold flowing into their markets, stamped with a face that isn't the emperor's, and they have decided it's time to remind these southern provincials of their place. Sitting on the high seat is the boy king, Ozana. He's young, maybe 7 or 8 years old, his legs barely reaching the edge of the throne. He looks bored, twisting a gold ring on his thumb. Beside him, sitting on a slightly lower stool, is Safia. She is dressed simply compared to the flashiness of the Roman, wearing a white robe embroidered with sunbirds. She is perfectly still. Lucius makes his first mistake immediately. He ignores her. He addresses the boy directly, speaking in rapid, high-flown Griktha, diplomatic language of the day. "Great king," he booms, his voice echoing off the stone walls. The emperor, son of the sun, master of the world, sends his greetings. He is ... concerned. He has seen your tokens in our markets. He feels it is presumptuous for a friend of Rome to mint gold without the imperial seal. Ozana blinks. He looks at his mother. Rome controls the gold standard. To deviate from this is to invite ... confusion, chaos. We suggest you cease this minting operation and return to the use of approved imperial bullion. In exchange, the emperor is willing to offer you a discount on Egyptian grain. He smiles, a oily, patronizing smile. He thinks he's offering a great deal. He thinks he's talking to savages who will be impressed by a few boatloads of wheat. Safia leans forward. The motion is slight, but the guards tense up. "You can feel the shift in the room, envoy," she says. Her Greek is flawless, better than his. Actually, it's the Attic Greek of the philosophers, crisp and precise. You address the king, but you negotiate with the crown. And your offer is ... lacking. Lucius turns to her, looking annoyed at the interruption. "Madam," he sneers, "I am discussing matters of state with the sovereign. These are complex economic concepts, perhaps beyond the purview of a ... caretaker." There it is, the mistake. You practically wince. You want to yell, "Lucius, buddy, read the room," but you stay silent. Safia doesn't get angry. She doesn't scream. She actually smiles, but it's a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. It's the smile of a shark looking at a seal that just fell off an iceberg. "Complex concepts," she repeats softly. "Let us discuss complexity, Lucius. You offer us grain. Yet our spies in Alexandria tell us the harvest in the Nile Delta failed this year. You have no grain to give. You are buying grain from us, through intermediaries in Agellis, to feed your own legions in Syria." Lucius freezes. His face goes pale. Furthermore, she continues, standing up now. She's not tall, but she commands the space. "You speak of the emperor's gold standard, but we have melted down your imperial coins. We tested them. They are 80% gold. The rest is copper and lead. You are debasing your currency to pay for wars you cannot win. She walks down the steps of the dais, stopping inches from him. Our coin is 98% pure. We do not cheat our partners. So, tell me, envoy, why would the world trust a debased Roman lie when they can hold an honest Aksumite truth? The silence that follows is deafening. Historians still argue about the exact nature of these diplomatic exchanges, whether they were this direct or couched in more flowery language. But the economic reality supports Sophia's speech. Aksumite gold was purer. Rome was suffering from inflation and crop failures. She isn't bluffing. She is stating facts that Lucius hoped she didn't know. She signals to a servant who brings a tray. On it is a single Roman aureus and a single Aksumite coin. "Take this back to your emperor," she says, her voice cold. "Tell him that Aksum is not a client state. We are a partner. And if he wishes to trade, he will accept our gold at the value we set. If not, ... She pauses, letting the threat hang in the air. The Persians have been very eager to discuss silk routes lately. That is the kill shot. The mention of Persia-Rome's mortal enemy drains the last bit of color from Lucius's face. If Aksum sides with Persia, Rome is cut off from the Indian Ocean. They are strangled. Lucius stammers something about misunderstandings, and conveying the message, he bows, much lower this time, and backs out of the room. He looks deflated, a man who walked in thinking he was a lion tamer and realized too late he was locked in the cage with the lion. As the heavy doors boom shut behind him, the tension in the room breaks. Azana giggles. He picks up the Roman coin from the tray and tosses it to his monkey. The monkey sniffs it and throws it away. Safia sits back down, the mask of the Iron Queen slipping just a fraction. She looks tired. "They will not accept this easily," she murmurs to an advisor. "He will send reports. They will try to squeeze us elsewhere." "Let them try," the advisor grunts. "You watch her. She just humiliated a representative of the greatest empire on earth, and she didn't even raise her voice." This is a turning point. Before today, Aksum was a wealthy trading partner. Now, it is a rival. But you also notice something else. As she organizes her scrolls, her hand trembles slightly. Just a tremor. She knows the stakes. She knows that by humiliating Rome, she has painted a target on her back. You walk over to where the Roman coin landed. It's worn, the face of the emperor rubbed smooth by thousands of hands. It looks tired. Then you look at the Aksumite coin in the tray. Sharp, bright, new. Safia catches your eye. "History is written by the victors," she says, almost as if she knows you're narrating this, but it is funded by the accountants. "Never forget that." She waves a hand, dismissing the court. "Clear the room. We have work to do. If we are to threaten Rome with the Silk Road, we had better make sure we actually control it. That's your cue." The diplomatic phase is over. The economic war has officially been declared, and the next battleground isn't a palace. It's the vast, dangerous expanse of the ocean, where the silk ships sail. Safia just bluffed about controlling the Silk Road. Now she has to make it true. You leave the political theater of the palace and head back to the water. But this time, you aren't standing on the docks of a Agilis. You are hundreds of miles out in the open ocean, the Indian Ocean, balancing precariously on the deck of a massive, double-masted dhow. The wood creaks rhythmically beneath your feet, a lullaby of timber and tar that has been sung for centuries. The wind here hits different. It's the monsoon, the Hippolytus wind. As the Greeks called it, it is the engine of the ancient world. It blows steadily northeast in the summer and southwest in the winter, a predictable conveyor belt that nature built specifically for commerce. And right now, you are riding that conveyor belt straight toward the island of Taprobane, you know today as Sri Lanka. This is the choke point. This is where the Silk Road hits the water. You look around the deck. This isn't a warship. There are no catapults, no rows of armed marines sharpening their swords. The crew looks like a motley collection of sailors from everywhere. Arabs, Indians, Aksumites, even a few Malays. But don't let the lack of armor fool you. This ship is on a mission of interception that is far more damaging to Rome than any naval blockade. Standing near the helm is a man named Ion. He doesn't look like a soldier. He looks like a math tutor who got lost at sea. He's holding a wax tablet and checking the horizon with a nervous intensity. Ion is a commercial agent of the Queen. His job isn't to sink Roman ships, it's to get to the goods before they do. The plan is simple, but devastating. Rome is desperate for Chinese silk. They crave it. The senatorial wives in the capital will pay their weight in gold for the shimmering, translucent fabric that the moralists in the Senate call woven wind and complain is too revealing. But Rome has a problem. They can't get to China. The Persians block the land route, and the sea route is long and dangerous. Enter Aksum. You arrive at the port of Manti in Sri Lanka. It's a sensory overload. This is the meeting place of East and West. You see Chinese junks with their distinctive batwing sails bobbing next to Persian vessels and Indian rafts. The air smells of cinnamon, pepper, and wet rot. Ian moves quickly. He disembarks before the gangplank is even fully secured. You follow him through the crowded market, dodging elephants, carrying tick logs, and vendors selling precious stones that sparkle in the mud. He's looking for a specific warehouse. Inside, it's cool and dark. A group of Sogdian merchants, the great middlemen of the Silk Road, are sitting on carpets, drinking tea. They have bales of raw silk stacked behind them, wrapped in protective oilcloth. A Roman agent is already there. You recognize the type, loud, arrogant, waving a bag of silver coins. He's trying to haggle. He's telling the merchants that the emperor will be displeased if the price isn't lowered. He's playing the "do you know who I am" card. Ian walks in. He doesn't yell, he doesn't threaten. He simply sits down opposite the merchants, ignores the Roman entirely, and opens a small leather satchel. He pulls out those high-purity gold coins you saw being minted. He stacks them. Clink, clink, clink. The sound cuts through the Romans, blustering like a knife. The queen offers this price, Ian says in perfect Sanskrit, for the entire lot, including the next shipment. The Sogdian merchants look at the Roman silver mixed with copper, duller. Then they look at the Aksumite, gold bright, heavy, pure. It's not a difficult choice. In the ancient world, Gresham's law might say, bad money drives out good in circulation. But in a wholesale deal like this, good money buys the inventory. The Roman agent sputters. This is preposterous. We have a treaty. We have silver that turns black in the sea air. One of the merchants says, waving him away. We take the gold. Just like that, the deal is done. The Roman leaves empty-handed, furious. Ian signals his crew, and they begin loading the bales. But it's not just silk. You watch as they load crates of pepper, spikenard oil, and here's the quirky fringed tidbit cage containing a maiden. It's actually a dugong, or sea cow, that someone has convinced a gullible buyer is a mystical sea creature. The ancient luxury trade was filled with this kind of carnival sideshow. As the ship sets sail back toward Africa, fully laden, you realize what's happening. Aksum isn't just trading. They are hoarding. By buying up the supply at the source or close to it, they are creating an artificial scarcity in the Mediterranean. Historians still argue whether this was a coordinated state policy of economic siege or just Aksumite merchants being better capitalists than the Romans. But looking at Ian, who is now carefully noting the transaction in a ledger that will go straight to Safia, it feels coordinated. On the return journey, you sit on a bale of silk worth more than a Roman centurion makes in a lifetime. Ian joins you, peeling an orange. They think they own the world, he says, gesturing north toward where the Roman Empire lies. But they don't produce anything we want, they just consume. A mouth cannot rule the hand that feeds it. He's right. Rome has a trade deficit problem. They are bleeding gold to pay for these luxuries, and Aksum is the one holding the tourniquet. The interception isn't just about silk, though. As you get closer to the African coast, you see Aksumite patrol ships intercepting independent traders. They aren't attacking them, they are guiding them. The port of Bernice is unsafe due to pirates. The patrol captain shouts through a megaphone, "Proceed to Agellis for your own protection." It's a lie, of course. Bernice is fine. But by funneling all the traffic into Agellis, Aksum ensures they get the tax revenue and first pick of the goods. It's a protection racket disguised as maritime safety. You arrive back at the warehouses in Agellis. The scale of the hoarding is impressive. You see vast cavernous rooms filled to the ceiling with goods. There are tusks of ivory stacked like firewood. There are jars of frankincense. And now, there are mountains of silk. Safia's strategy is becoming clear. She's turning Agellis into the Amazon fulfillment center of antiquity. If you want something in Rome, you can't buy it direct. You have to buy it from Aksum, with a markup that would make a modern scalper blush. You watch as a Roman ship docks. The captain comes ashore, looking desperate. He needs silk for the emperor's triumph parade. He asks the price. The Aksumite harbor master smiles and names a figure that is double what it was last year. The captain argues, he pleads, he threatens. The harbor master shrugs. Supply chain issues, he says, using a timeless excuse. The winds were bad. Pirates? Very difficult. The captain pays. He has no choice. He hands over chests of Roman gold which Aksum will promptly melt down and remint into their own purer coin. It's a beautiful, vicious cycle. Rome is literally funding its own economic demise. As you walk away from the warehouse, you spot Ian again. He's supervising the unloading of the dugong. It looks miserable. What happens to that, you ask? The queen likes exotic things, he says. Or maybe we sell it to the Greeks. They'll believe anything. You laugh, but the reality is serious. Aksum has successfully intercepted the artery of global trade. They have cut out the middleman by becoming the middleman. But there's one commodity left that is even more valuable than silk. It's the white gold of the ancient world, ivory. And if you think the silk interception was aggressive, wait until you see what Sophia does with the elephants. That's not just economics, that's an ecological monopoly. You leave the salt spray of the Red Sea behind and head back into the interior. But this time you're going off-road. And I don't mean gravel driveway off-road. I mean hacking through vegetation that wants to strangle you off-road. You are heading into the deep savannas and forest edges south of the capital, into the domain of the Loxodonta, the African elephant. In the ancient world, ivory isn't just a pretty material for piano keys or billiard balls. It is the plastic of antiquity. It's used for everything: hair combs, knife handles, furniture inlays, religious statues, and, crucially, the sella curalis ivory chair that high-ranking Roman magistrates sit on to show they are important. Basically, if you are a Roman VIP and you aren't sitting on dead elephant teeth, are you even ruling? You arrive at a staging ground on the edge of the wilderness. The smell here is intense musk, wood smoke, and the copper temps of drying meat. This is the headquarters of the elephant hunters. These aren't random poachers. They are a state-sanctioned guild, as organized and disciplined as a modern mining corporation. You watch a team return from the bush. They look exhausted, their skin coated in red dust. They are dragging a sledge carrying 2 massive tusks. These are the small tusks of the dwindling North African forest elephants that Rome had access to and subsequently ate into extinction. These are from the African bush, elephant massive, curved, heavy pillars of white gold. One of the hunters, a scarred veteran with a necklace of lion teeth, wipes his forehead and pours water over the tusks to clean them. As the mud washes away, the ivory gleams in the sunlight, creamy and smooth. It's beautiful, undeniably, but there's a heaviness to it. You are looking at the result of a violent, dangerous confrontation between man and nature's tank. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit for you. The Romans, specifically the naturalist Pliny the Elder, actually believed that elephants knew their tusks were valuable. Pliny wrote that when an elephant was surrounded by hunters, it would sometimes smash its own tusks against a tree or the ground to break them off, hoping the hunters would take the ivory and let the elephant go. It's a tragic, anthropomorphic myth, but it shows just how obsessed the ancients were with this commodity. They projected their own greed onto the animals. You follow the ivory as it's loaded onto a caravan. But here is where things get interesting. Normally, these caravans would head straight for Agilis to be sold to the highest bidder. But Sophia has issued new orders. You travel with the caravan to a series of fortified warehouses located not at the port, but high in the defensive perimeter of the mountains near Aksum. You walk inside one of these storehouses. It is floor-to-ceiling ivory. Thousands of tusks are stacked like firewood. It's a staggering fortune. It represents hundreds of millions of sestertii in Roman value, and it's sitting there gathering dust. You see a merchant from Agilis arguing with the warehouse keeper. The ships are waiting. The merchant pleads. The price in Antioch is at an all-time high. We must sell. The keeper, a man who looks like he has no soul and enjoys it, simply shakes his head. The regent says, hold. For how long? Until they are desperate. This is the squeeze. Sophia understands the concept of price elasticity better than most modern economists. She knows that for luxury goods, demand doesn't drop just because the price goes up. In fact, for the Roman elite, the higher the price, the more they want it. It's a Veblen good. If it's cheap, it's trash. If it's expensive, it's status. By stockpiling the ivory, she is creating an artificial drought in the Mediterranean. Let's flash forward for a second. Teleport with me to Rome. You are standing in the workshop of a master craftsman in the Subira district. He is sweating. He has a commission from a newly elected consul who needs his ceremonial ivory chair by next Tuesday. The craftsman is shouting at his supplier. There is no bone, the supplier yells back. The ships from Agilis are empty. They say the elephants have vanished. They say the spirits of the forest are angry. The supplier is lying, of course. He knows the ivory is just sitting in a warehouse in Ethiopia. But the angry spirit excuse sounds better than we are being played by a woman in Africa who understands supply and demand better than we do. The craftsman has to buy recycled ivory-old pieces cut down and recarved at triple the price. He passes that cost on to the consul. The consul complains but pays it because he can't be seen sitting on a wooden chair like a peasant. The gold leaves his purse, travels to the supplier, then to the ship captain, and finally, inevitably, ends up in Safia's mint. Back in Aksum, you watch Safia inspecting the warehouse. She runs a hand along a tusk that is taller than she is. She isn't looking at it with artistic appreciation. She's looking at it as leverage. Historians still argue about the ecological impact of this era. Some say Aksum practiced a form of sustainable harvesting, rotating hunting grounds, to prevent total collapse. Others argue they were just as rapacious as the Romans, only limited by technology. But there is evidence that Aksum maintained the trade for centuries longer than their northern neighbors, suggesting they managed the resource with a bit more foresight. Safia turns to her advisor. "Release 10% of the stock," she says calmly, "just enough to stop them from finding a substitute material. Keep them hungry, but don't let them starve." This is the brilliance of the strategy. If she cut it off completely, the Romans might switch to bone, or wood, or metal. She keeps the flow just a trickle, ensuring that ivory remains the standard, but a standard that only the ultra-wealthy can afford. She is effectively taxing the vanity of the Roman Senate. Every time a Roman politician wants to look important, he has to pay a tribute to Aksum. You walk out of the warehouse and look at the landscape. The sun is setting over the highlands. You realize that this empire isn't just built on gold mines. It's built on a deep understanding of human psychology. Safia knows that Rome is addicted to luxury, and like any good dealer, she controls the supply to maximize the demand and the profit. But there's a danger in this. When you corner the market on a vital resource, you make enemies, desperate enemies. Rome can't invade. Aksumite's too far, too mountainous, too strong. But they can try to cheat. They can try to change the rules of the game. As you head back toward the city, you see a group of Roman economists, or the ancient equivalent, tax assessors arriving. They aren't here to buy ivory. They are here to try and fix the exchange rate. They are going to try to inflate their way out of this debt trap. Safia has anticipated this, of course. She's about to give them a lesson in monetary policy that will leave their heads spinning. The ivory squeeze was just the jab. The uppercut is coming in the form of a gold purity war that will shatter the Roman financial system. You might want to hold onto your wallet for the next part. We're about to see what happens when an empire tries to print money to solve a problem that can only be solved by production. You leave the ivory stockpiles and jump forward in the economic chain, landing squarely in the middle of a currency exchange crisis. But to understand the trap Safia has set, you first need to teleport north, across the Mediterranean, to a Roman mint in the city of Antioch. The atmosphere here is frantic. You are standing next to a Roman mint master who looks like he has slept in a week. He's sweating, not just from the heat of the furnaces, but from fear. The emperor needs money. The legions haven't been paid in 3 months, and unpaid soldiers tend to start thinking about electing a new emperor who will pay them. So, you watch as the master makes a desperate decision. He orders his workers to throw a pile of copper ingots into the crucible with the gold. He's diluting the mix. He's debasing the currency. It's subtle at first. The coins that come out still look gold. But if you hold one, it feels wrong. It's a little too light. The color is a little too red. This is the birth of inflation. The Roman state is effectively stealing value from every person who holds this coin. They are printing money out of thin air, hoping nobody notices. Now, snap back to Aksum. You are in the central market again. It's a bright, clear morning. A Roman trader, let's call him Felix, is trying to buy a shipment of frankincense. He confidently slaps a bag of these new Antioch minted coins onto the table. The Aksumite merchant, a woman with sharp eyes and hands stained with indigo dye, doesn't even open the bag. She just pushes a small set of scales toward him. "We weigh," she says. Felix rolls his eyes. It is the emperor's coin. It is standard weight. "The emperor's standard changes with the wind," she replies dryly. She takes one of his coins and places it on one side of the scale. On the other side, she places an Aksumite coin of the same theoretical denomination. The scale tips. Hard. The Aksumite side drops like a stone. The Roman side floats up. The crowd around you murmurs. This is a public humiliation of Roman power. The Aksumite coin is 98% pure gold. The Roman coin may be 85% if Felix is lucky. "I will take your coins," the merchant says, "but at a 40% discount." 40%, Felix screams. "This is robbery. This is arithmetic," she counters. "Your gold is watered down. My frankincense is not. Do you want the resin or not?" Felix pays he has to, and in that transaction, you see the inflation trap snap shut. Because Felix has to hand over more Roman coins to get the same amount of goods, the Roman economy bleeds faster. Meanwhile, Aksum collects these debased coins, melts them down, extracts the actual gold, throws away the copper garbage, and mints their own high-purity coins. They are literally refining Roman trash into Aksumite treasure. You wander through the market and see this playing out everywhere. Prices in Roman currency are skyrocketing. A loaf of bread that cost 2 denarii last month now costs 4. But prices in Aksumite currency, stable boringly, wonderfully stable, this creates a psychological shift. You see wealthy merchants from Alexandria and Yemen keeping their savings in Aksumite gold. It becomes the reserve currency of the region. Why hold Roman money that rots in your pocket when you can hold Aksumite money that holds its value? Here's a quirky fringe tidbit for you. During this period of hyperinflation in Rome, things got so bad that people started using weird substitutes for money. In some parts of Egypt, we have records of people paying taxes in wheat or even tailored clothing because the coin was so untrustworthy. There is even a theory that the famous edict on maximum prices issued by Emperor Diocletian, which tried to freeze prices by death. Penalty was partly a reaction to trade imbalances like this. The government literally tried to make inflation illegal by threatening to chop people's heads off. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. You can't execute the law of supply and demand. Back in the palace, Safia is watching the reports come in. She isn't celebrating, she's calculating. She knows that by maintaining the purity of her coin, she is draining the Mediterranean of its real wealth. It's a vacuum cleaner effect. The bad money Roman coin floods the market. While the good money Aksumite coin is hoarded or flows back to the Aksumite treasury, historians still argue whether this was a deliberate form of economic warfare or just a byproduct of Aksum having better access to gold mines. Did Safia wake up and say, "Let's destroy the Roman economy"? Or did she just say, "We have standards"? Given the sophistication of her other moves, it's hard not to see the intent. She knew Rome was vulnerable, and she exploited the one thing they couldn't fix, their spending addiction. You watch a caravan arriving from the north. It's carrying tax revenues from the Roman provinces of Upper Egypt. But the local governors there have started doing something treasonous. They are converting their tax collections into Aksumite gold before sending it to Rome, skimming off the difference. The corruption is eating the empire from the inside out, fueled by the stability of the southern neighbor. Sophia turns to a map on her wall. Rome is struggling. Their economy is shivering with fever. But a wounded animal is dangerous. If Rome realizes they can't buy their way out of this, they might try to fight their way out. They are running out of friends, she notes to her advisor, and soon they will run out of patience. She points a finger east, across the Persian Gulf. If Rome cannot pay, we must find a partner who can. She's talking about the Sassanid Empire of Persia, Rome's archnemesis, the enemy of my enemy. If Aksum were to formalize an alliance with Persia, they would effectively encircle the Roman economy. It would be the geopolitical equivalent of a checkmate. You realize that Safia is done playing defense. She's done skimming profits. She is about to make a diplomatic pivot that will reshape the balance of power in the ancient world. She is going to Ctesiphon, or rather, her envoys and you are going with them. Pack your bags for the desert, because we're about to walk into the lion's den of the Persian court, where the carpets are thick, the wine is strong, and the hatred for Rome runs deeper than the oil wells they dan. No, they have yet You leave the cool air of the Ethiopian highlands and embark on a journey that feels less like a trade mission and more like a spy novel. You are heading east, crossing the Red Sea, traversing the scorching sands of the Arabian Peninsula, and finally sailing up the Tigris River. You are entering the belly of the beast, or rather, the other beast. You are entering the Sassanid Empire of Persia. Your destination is Ctesiphon, a city so magnificent that its ruins still make modern architects weep with envy. As you approach, the first thing you see is the Tek Kasra. It is the largest single-span brick arch in the world. It rises out of the dusty plain like a giant, unblinking eye made of clay. It defies gravity. It defies logic. It screams, "We built this just to show you that we could." You are traveling with Sophia's envoys. These aren't the rug-handable merchants you met at the port. These are the elite. They are dressed in robes of fine linen, heavily embroidered with gold thread that glitters in the harsh sun. They carry gifts that are calculated to impress a king of kings, a pair of live giraffes, which are causing havoc on the barge, sacks of that super pure gold dust, and pointedly, a chest of Roman coins that have been melted down into a shapeless lumpa, symbolic gift that says, "Look what we think of your enemy's money." You dock at the river port. The air here is different. It smells of rosewater, roasted pistachios, and ancient dust. The people are dressed in trousers, a scandalous innovation to the toga-wearing Romans, but practical for a nation of horsemen. You are escorted to the palace. The security is tight. You pass through layers of guards, each more heavily armored than the last. These are the immortals, the elite Persian guard. They wear scale armor that covers them from head to toe, their faces hidden behind metal masks. They look like statues that have learned to kill. Inside the audience hall, the atmosphere is heavy with ritual. In Rome, the emperor might pretend to be a first citizen, at least in the early days. Here, there is no pretense. The Shahanshah is the shadow of God on earth. You don't see him at first. You see a massive shimmering curtain made of heavy silk, embroidered with pearls and rubies. The court stands in silence. You and the envoys are instructed to prostrate yourselves, literally, face down in the carpet. This is the proskynesis, a ritual of submission that drove independent Meta-Greeks and Romans crazy. But the Aksumite envoys perform it with practiced grace. They know the game. The curtain rises slowly. Sitting on a throne that looks more like a golden couch is the Shah. He is wearing a crown so heavy that it is actually suspended from the ceiling by a gold chain to keep it from breaking his neck. He doesn't speak to you directly. He whispers to a vizier, who then booms the message to the room. The King of Kings welcomes the travelers from the land of burnt faces. It's a bit of a backhanded compliment, but in the ancient world, that's as good as a hug. The negotiations begin, and this is where you see the genius of Sophia's strategy. She hasn't sent her envoys to ask for a favor. She sent them to propose a monopoly. The head Aksumite envoy rises. He speaks of the Red Sea. He explains that Aksum has effectively locked down the maritime route. Rome cannot breathe through the water, he says poetically. If you, great king, squeeze the windpipe of the land. He trails off, but the implication is clear. If Persia tightens its grip on the Silk Road routes through Central Asia and Aksum chokes the sea routes, Rome is isolated. The Byzantine economy becomes an island. Cut off from the luxury goods of the East, they will be forced to buy from Aksum and Persia at whatever price is set. The Shah listens. He strokes his beard, which is oiled and curled into perfect ringlets. He hates Rome. Rome is the ancestral enemy. Anything that hurts Rome is good policy. But he is cautious. And what does Aksum seek in return? The vizier asks. Recognition, the envoy replies, and coordination. When you raise tariffs on silk, we raise tariffs on ivory. When you block a caravan, we delay a fleet. We move as two hands of the same body. This is the handshake. It's the formation of an ancient cartel. It's OPEC for the classical world. But instead of oil, they control everything that makes life worth living for the rich. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit. The Persian court was obsessed with automata mechanical devices. As the negotiations conclude, the Shah claps his hands, and a golden tree next to the throne suddenly comes to life. Mechanical birds made of silver and gold begin to chirp and flap their wings. Lions made of bronze at the foot of the throne let out a roar driven by compressed air. It's a terrifying, magical display of technology designed to intimidate the guests. The Aksumites maintain their composure, but you can see them sweating. It's a reminder that while Aksum has the gold, Persia has the engineering. The deal is struck. Gifts are exchanged. The Persians give the Aksumites a set of silver plates depicting the Shah hunting lions, a subtle flex of military prowess. The Aksumites leave the lump of melted Roman gold. The Shah laughs when he sees it. It's the first human sound you've heard from him. Historians still argue about the depth of this alliance. Was there a formal treaty signed on parchment? Probably not. The religious differences were stark. Persians were Zoroastrian, Aksumites were leaning toward Christianity, or still pagan, depending on the exact year. Later, religion would drive them apart. But in this specific window of economic opportunity, money was the only god that mattered. It was a pragmatic alignment of interests that scholars often overlook in favor of the religious wars that came later. As you leave the palace, walking back toward the river under the purple twilight of Mesopotamia, you realize what has just happened. The world has just become a lot smaller for Rome. Safia has successfully encircled her rival. She has the gold mines, she has the ships, and now she has a silent partner in the east who is more than happy to help her bleed the Roman treasury dry. But all this wealth, the gold from the mines, the profits from the silk, the savings from the Persian dealet, has to go somewhere. You can't just pile it up in a room. That causes inflation. You have to spend it. You have to turn that liquid capital into something permanent, something that says, we were here and we were mighty. You board the ship back to Africa. You're leaving the flat plains of Mesopotamia and returning to the vertical world of Ethiopia. Because back home, the architects are getting ready. Safia is about to start the biggest construction project in her empire's history. She's not building a wall. She's not building a bridge. She's building a stairway to heaven made of solid granite. You are back in the thin air of the capital, but the silence of the palace is gone. The city is vibrating, literally. You can feel a rhythmic thumping in the soles of your sandals, a low-frequency tremor that seems to be coming from the earth itself. You follow the noise out of the city center, about 4 kilometers west, to a place called Wuchet Golo. This is the quarry. This is the womb where the giants are born. You stand on the edge of a massive pit. Below you, swarming like termites on a fallen branch, are hundreds, maybe thousands of workers. They are surrounding a single block of Nephilim syenite, a type of granite so hard it ruins steel chisels. But these men aren't using steel. They are using dolerite balls and iron wedges, pounding and splitting the rock with a patience that is terrifying to watch. They are carving a monster. This is the age of the steely. Aksum is famous for these obelisks, but obelisk is the wrong word. An Egyptian obelisk is a smooth needle pointing to the sun. An Aksumite stele is a skyscraper. You climb down into the dust to get a closer look. The stone is being carved to look exactly like a multi-story building. You see false doors at the base, complete with carved locks that will never open. You see rows of windows that will never let in light. You see the distinct monkey head architectural style protruding square knobs that mimic the wooden beams used in real Aksumite houses to secure the walls. It is a ghost house, a palace for the dead, frozen in stone. And who is paying for this geological madness? You know the answer. You watch a paymaster walking through the lines of workers. He isn't handing out bread or beer rations. He is handing out those small, bright gold coins, the wealth extracted from the Roman inflation crisis, the profits from the silk monopoly, the fees from the ivory squeeze. It's all being poured into this pit. Safia is transmuting economic dominance into permanent vertical glory. But carving it is the easy part. Moving it is where the nightmare begins. You are looking at the Great Stele. It is 33 meters long. That's a 10-story building. It weighs 520 tons. That's equal to about 130 elephants. And they have to move it for kilometers over rough terrain and then stand it up. Historians and engineers still argue violently about how they did this. There are no wheels here, no pulleys, no cranes, just muscle, ropes, and leverage. You watch the preparation. The ground has been smoothed into a track. The quirky fringe tidbit you'll hear whispered by the locals is that they used the power of the Ark of the Covenant to levitate the stones. Some legends say they used sonic technology trumpets and drums played at a specific frequency that made the stone light. It sounds like sci-fi or ancient aliens nonsense, but standing next to a 500-ton rock, you can understand why people invent magic to explain it. The reality is likely just as impressive, a sliding track of wet mud and logs. You join the crowd as the pull begins. It's a scene of coordinated agony. Drums beat the rhythm. Boom, boom. 1,000 men pull on thick ropes made of fiber and leather. Heave the stone, groans. It moves an inch. Heave another inch. It takes months. Men die. They are crushed by rolling logs, snapped by breaking ropes, or just drop dead from heart failure. But the stone keeps moving. It is a relentless assertion of will. Finally, you arrive at the Stele Park in the center of the city. The ground is littered with other smaller stones, but this one is the king. A massive pit has been dug to receive the base. A ramp of earth spirals up, higher and higher. The raising is the most dangerous moment. If it falls, it shatters. If it falls the wrong way, it wipes out a city block. You watch as they use a counterweight system, likely a massive wooden frame, and baskets of rocks stew slowly, agonizingly tip the giant upright. It rises against the sky, blotting out the sun. It teeters. The crowd holds its breath. The silence is absolute. Then, a sickening crack. It doesn't settle. It twists. The foundation was too weak, or the angle was too steep, or perhaps the water table underneath had shifted. The great stele, the largest single piece of stone humanity ever tried to stand upright, comes crashing down. The impact is like a meteor strike. The ground jumps, dust billows up like a mushroom cloud. When the air clears, the giant is broken. It lies in pieces, a shattered dream of immortality. You see Safia standing on a balcony overlooking the disaster. She doesn't scream, she doesn't cry. She just stares at the rubble. Some historians argue that the collapse of the great stele marked a turning point, a sign of hubris, a signal that the pagan traditions were failing. They say it pushed the elite toward Christianity, toward a god who didn't require 500-ton rocks to be impressed. But Safia isn't defeated. She points to the next stone in line. This one is slightly smaller, only 24 meters tall. "Raise that one," she orders. This is the stele of King Ozana, and this one stands. You watch it settle into place. It is perfect, lean, sharp, covered in intricate carvings. It towers over the city, visible for miles. It is a beacon. To a traveler approaching from the coast, it says one thing: the people who live here can do the impossible. You walk up to the base of the standing stele. It casts a long, thin shadow across the royal cemetery. You run your hand over the granite. It's cold, smooth. You realize that this isn't just a tombstone, it's a receipt. Every inch of this stone was paid for by the transfer of wealth from north to south. It is a monument to the trade deficit. The Romans built the Colosseum with Jewish gold looted from Jerusalem. The Aksumites built these stele with Roman gold looted by market forces. As you stand there, dwarfed by the monolith, a priest approaches. He's carrying a censer, the smoke curling up around the granite base. He places a bowl of food offerings on a carved altar at the foot of the false door. "The ancestors are hungry," he mutters. You look at the false door again. It's a psychological trick. It suggests that there is a life inside the stone, a presence that is watching. It reinforces the power of the monarchy. The king isn't just a ruler. He is a bridge between the living and the dead, just as he is a bridge between the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. But building giant rocks is expensive. And while Safia has been focused on these grand projects and high-level diplomacy, the seas have been getting dangerous. All that gold moving around has attracted attention. You look toward the horizon, back toward the Red Sea. The pirates are coming. Not the Jack Sparrow type, but ruthless, organized raiders who don't care about exchange rates or treaties. They just want the loot. Safia's economic engine is powerful, but it's fragile. If the ships stop moving, the gold stops flowing. And if the gold stops flowing, the stone giants stop rising. She needs a navy, not just a few patrol boats, but a fleet that can sweep the sea clean. You are about to leave the solid earth of Aksum and get back on the water. But this time, you aren't trading silk, you're hunting hunters. You leave the dust of the quarries and the shadow of the stone giants behind. You are back on the coast, but you aren't standing on a dock this time. You are crouching behind a bulwark on the deck of a fast interceptor, your stomach doing slow circles as the ship cuts through the chop of the southern Red Sea. This isn't a fact merchant dhow laden with livery. This is a crediver. It's long, lean, and packed with men who look like they chew gravel for breakfast. You are patrolling the Dalek archipelago, a maze of coral reefs and islands that is essentially a pirate's paradise. The captain of this vessel is a man named Masal. He has one eye and a smile that suggests he lost the other one doing something he enjoyed. He's scanning the horizon, looking for sea wolves. In the ancient world, piracy isn't a romantic lifestyle choice. It's a seasonal industry. The local coastal tribes often referred to in texts as barbarians of the coast, or specific groups, like the Bija view the passing, trade ships the same way a farmer views a migration of gazelles, a harvest waiting to happen. They use small sewn boat planks stitched together with coconut fiber ropes rather than nailed. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit for you. These sewn boats sound fragile, but they are actually brilliant engineering for this environment. They are flexible. If they hit a coral reef, they bounce and flex where a rigid Roman hull would shatter. They can skim over shallow water that would ground a heavy warship. They are the guerrilla fighters of the sea. Masal points a calloused finger toward a cluster of mangrove islands. There, he grunts. You squint against the glare. You see nothing but heat, haze, and water. Then movement. 3 small skiffs darting out from the cover of the trees, heading on an intercept course for a lumbering Roman grain ship that is struggling against the wind. The Roman ship is a sitting duck. It's heavy, slow, and probably crewed by sailors who are already half dead from scurvy. The pirates are closing in, their oars flashing in unison. They aren't planning to sink the ship. They want to board it, kill the crew, and tow the cargo back to their hidden lagoons. Masal barks an order. The drummer on your ship changes the beat fast, aggressive, a heartbeat of war. The rowers below deck dig in. Your ship surges forward. This is where you see the difference between a merchant guard and the Royal Navy of Aksum Masal. Doesn't just sail toward them, he executes a maneuver that cuts off their retreat. He knows these waters. He knows the currents. The pirates spot you. You see the panic. They know this flag. They know that the queen doesn't take prisoners. They abandon the Roman target and scatter, trying to flee back into the shallow reefs where your deep-keel ship can't follow. But Masal is prepared for this. He signals to the archers lined up on the deck. They aren't using normal arrows. They are using arrows tipped with burning pitch. The volley is loose. It's a terrifying sound, the thrum of bowstrings, followed by the hiss of fire arching through the air. One of the pirate skiffs catches a hit on its sail. The dry palm matting goes up like a torch. The other 2 skiffs try to weave through the coral heads. Masal steers your ship terrifyingly close to the rocks. You can see the jagged coral just feet below the surface, ready to rip the bottom out of your world. The pilot is sweating, his knuckles white on the tiller. Closer, Masal yells. He's hurting them. He's pushing them toward a specific channel, and suddenly you see why. Another Aksumite patrol boat appears from around the headland, blocking the exit. It's a hammer and anvil trap. The pirates surrender. There is no negotiation. They are hauled aboard, bound, and thrown into the hold. They will likely end up in the mines you visited earlier, digging for the very gold they tried to steal. It's a grim circle of economic life. You pull alongside the Roman merchant ship. The captain, a Greek from Alexandria, looks like he's about to cry with relief. He waves up at Masal, shouting praises to the emperor and the queen. Masal ignores the flattery. "Papers," he calls out. The merchant fumbles with a leather tube and sends it across on a rope. Masal opens the scroll. He checks the seal. He checks the date. He's looking for the tax stamp from Agellis. He nods. The stamp is there. "Proceed," he shouts. "Stay in the deep channel." As you sail away, you ask Masal what would have happened if the stamp wasn't there. He looks at you, cleans his fingernails with a dagger, and shrugs. The sea is dangerous. Sometimes we are ... too late. This is the cold reality of the pirate hunters. They aren't just peacekeeping, they are enforcing a protection racket. If you pay the queen's tariffs, the Red Sea is a highway. If you try to dodge the taxman, the Red Sea is a graveyard. You are paying for the privilege of not being boarded. Historians still debate the structure of the Aksumite Navy. Some argue it was a standing professional force modeled on Rome's classis. Others argue it was a feudal levy where merchant captains were deputized in times of crisis. But looking at the discipline of Masal's crew, the synchronized rowing and the pre-planned ambush tactics, it feels professional. This isn't a militia. This is a Coast Guard with a license to kill. The patrol continues until sunset. The sky turns a bruised purple over the African coast. You sit on the deck, eating dried fish that tastes like leather and salt. You realize that this naval supremacy is the invisible wall that protects the economic miracle inland. The gold mines, the stele, the silk monopolin. Of it works if the goods can't move safely. Rome used to police these waters. They used to call the Mediterranean Mare Nostrum Our Sea. They tried to claim the Red Sea too. But out here, seeing the Aksumite flags snapping in the wind, seeing the fear in the eyes of the pirates, it's clear that ownership has changed hands. Masal points to a lighthouse blinking in the distance. It's the harbor light of Agilit. The eye of the queen never blinks, he says. It's a cheesy line, but out here in the dark water, it feels true. Sofia has extended her reach from the mountain peaks to the coral reefs. She has secured the logistics. But back on land, the sheer volume of wealth pouring into the empire is starting to have social consequences. You can't just inject that much money into a society without changing the culture. The warrior nobility is becoming a merchant nobility, and in the marketplaces, people are starting to talk. They are drinking something new, a dark, bitter brew from the Kaffa province that makes you talk faster and sleep less. And in the places where they drink this brew, they are sharing ideas, dangerous ideas. You are about to step off the boat and into the first coffee house of the ancient world. And you're going to hear a conversation that connects the dots between a bean, a gold coin, and the invention of a financial concept that we still use today. You step off the boat, your legs still adjusting to the solid ground after the rolling waves of the Red Sea. The salt air of the harbor fades as you push deeper into the twisting alleyways of Agelis. It's night, but the city isn't sleeping. It's buzzing. You are following a scent. It's not the sickly sweet frankincense of the temples or the copper tang of the mint. It's something earthier, nuttier, with a burnt edge that wakes up the back of your brain. You are tracking the smell of roasting beans. You duck under a low awning and enter a structure that feels less like a tavern and more like a secret society meeting hall. The floor is strewn with fresh green grass and fragrant flowers of tradition that survives to this day. The air is thick with smoke, but it's a good smoke. Welcome to the Buna ceremony. Now, historians love to argue about this. They will push up their glasses and tell you that credible evidence for coffee drinking does appear until the 15th century in Yemen. They'll say you wouldn't find a coffee house in ancient Aksum, but then you have the oral traditions, the legends of Kaldi the goat herd, who saw his goats dancing after eating red berries in the Ethiopian highlands. You have the fact that the plant, Coffea arabica, is indigenous to this exact region. So, for the sake of our story and because it fits the vibe of a high-energy trading empire perfectly, we are going to assume that the Aksumites were enjoying the caffeine kick long before Starbucks put a logo on it. You sit on a low stool. A woman in a white dress is roasting green beans over a tiny charcoal brazier. She wafts the smoke toward you. It's a blessing. It's hospitality. But look around the room. The people drinking from these small handleless cups aren't just relaxing. They are wired. They are plotting. This is the incubator of the new economy. You tune in to a conversation at the next table. It's a group of long-distance traders. One is a Persian intermediary, his beard oiled and curled. Another is a local Aksumite ship owner wearing a tunic made of that expensive imported silk. The third is a Roman looking disheveled and anxious. The Roman is swirling the dark liquid in his cup, staring into the dregs as if trying to read the future. The prefect in Alexandria seized my last cargo, he mutters, claimed it was for emergency tax arrears. I lost everything. The law means nothing there anymore. The Aksumite ship owner nods sympathetically, but there's a gleam in his eye. The Roman law is a net that catches only the small fish, my friend. It is full of holes. But what can I do? The Roman pleads. I need to move glass to India, but I can't risk the pirates or your queen's tariffs. The Persian leans forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. You do not need to risk it. You need to hedge it. This is the moment. You are listening to the birth of a financial revolution. In the ancient world, shipping was a gamble. If your ship sank, you were destitute. The Romans had something called Finis Nauticuma sea loan, where a lender put up the money for the voyage, and if the ship sank, you didn't have to pay it back. But the interest rates were usurious, often 30% or more. The Aksumite shakes his head. We have a new way. A brotherhood of the port? He explains it to the Roman. It's not a loan, it's a pool. Every merchant in this room puts a percentage of their cargo S-value into a central chest held by the temple, let's say, the Temple of Almaca, or a church. If we're post-conversion, if a ship is lost to storms or pirates that have been paid off by the Navy, The chest pays out the value of the lost goods, its mutual insurance, its risk distribution. The queen guarantees the fund, the Aksumite adds casually, in exchange for ... oversight. The Roman looks stunned. She backs the losses. She backs the trade. The Persian corrects. She knows that if you are too scared to sail, her customs house collects no dust. By protecting your downside, she guarantees her upside. This is a level of state-sponsored economic sophistication that makes the Roman sees everything model look like banditry. Aksum isn't just a predator. It's a platform. It's providing the financial infrastructure that allows global trade to function smoothly, even as the political world collapses. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit for you. There are some linguistic theories, highly debated, mind youth, that link the word risk to the Arabic risk, meaning provisions or fortune granted by God. In this smoky room, you can see the shift in meaning happening in real time. Risk isn't just fate anymore. It's a line item in a ledger. It's something you can buy and sell. The Roman takes a sip of the strong, bitter coffee. His hands stop shaking. How do I join this? Brotherhood. You register your ship in Aegilus, the Aksumite says, sliding a wax tablet across the low table. You fly our flag, you pay our tax, and you never worry about a Roman prefect again. The Roman hesitates for exactly 1 second, then he presses his signet ring into the wax. You just watched a defection, not a political defection, but an economic one. That Roman merchant has just effectively become an Aksumite asset. His loyalty is no longer to the eagle of the legions. It's to the security of the ledger. The conversation shifts. The caffeine is hitting them now. They start talking faster, drawing maps and the spilled ash on the table. They are discussing the Himyarites across the water in Yemen. The king there is getting bold, the Persian notes. He is harassing the caravans that try to bypass Aksum. He is a fool, the Aksumite says, cracking a roasted bean between his teeth. He thinks he can dam the river. The queen will not send a diplomat this time. She is preparing the proxies. You lean in closer. Proxies. The tribes in the interior, the Aksumite whispers. They have new weapons, new gold. They are about to make life very difficult for the Himyarites. You realize you are listening to the precursor of modern geopolitical strategy. Why invade a country yourself when you can pay someone else to destabilize it for you? Safia isn't just managing trade. She's managing chaos. She is using her wealth to fund insurgencies that keep her rivals busy while her ships sail through the chaos untouched. The woman roasting the coffee pours another round. The liquid is thick, almost like syrup. You take a sip, it jolts your system. It's clarity in a cup. You look around the room again. These aren't just merchants. They are the nervous system of the ancient world. They know before the kings do when a harvest fails in Egypt or a plague breaks out in China. And right now, the consensus in this room is clear. The north is dying, the south is rising. The Roman merchant is laughing now, making jokes about the emperor's bad haircut. He feels safe, he has insurance, he has coffee, he has a future. But as you finish your cup, listening to the low hum of conspiracy and commerce, you catch a look between the Aksumite and the Persian. It's a look that says, "We own him now." The Roman thinks he just bought safety. In reality, he just sold his independence. He is now a cog in Safia's machine. If she decides to raise the premiums or deny his claim, he is finished. You step back out into the night air. The stars are wheeling overhead. The coffeehouse conspiracy isn't about overthrowing a government, it's about making the government irrelevant. Who cares who sits on the throne in Rome if the real power lies in a mutual insurance fund in Ethiopia? But the Aksumite merchant mentions something troubling. The Himyarites, the rivals across the Red Sea. They aren't going to take this lying down. If Aksum is funding proxies, Himyar is likely doing the same. The Cold War is about to heat up, and it's not going to be fought with insurance policies anymore. It's going to be fought with fire, sand, and betrayal. You need to cross the water. You need to see the other side of this proxy war. You leave the smoke-filled room of the coffeehouse and the safety of the Aksumite insurance brokers behind. You are moving from the boardroom to the battlefield. But this isn't a battlefield marked by neat lines of infantry and fluttering standards. This is the dirty, unseen front of the economic war. You board a small, nondescript skiff at midnight. No lanterns. The crew speaks in hushed tones. You are crossing the narrow neck of the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandab. It's a fitting name for what's happening on the other side. You are heading to the Arabian Peninsula, specifically the territory of the Himyarite Kingdom, modern-day Yemen. Himyar is the other heavyweight in the region. They control the frankincense groves, they control the overland routes that bypass the Red Sea. And crucial to our story, they have recently converted to Judaism, creating a distinct religious and political bloc that often aligns against Christianizing Aksum and Rome. Though alliances here shift like the sand dunes, you land on a desolate stretch of the Tihama coast. It's hot, even at night. The humidity wraps around you like a wet wool blanket. Waiting for you in the shadows of a rocky outcrop is a group of men who look like they grew out of the desert itself. These are the Bedouin Raiders, the proxies. They are led by a man named Harith. He's lean, his skin weathered to the color of old leather, and he's holding a camel by a nose rope. He doesn't look like a soldier, he looks like a bandit, and that's exactly what Safia needs. An Aksumite agent steps off the boat with you. It's a different agent this time, a military advisor, carrying a heavy chest. He sets it down in the sand. Harith opens it. It glitters, Aksumite gold. The price of chaos, the advisor says in a low voice. The queen expects the northern road to be ... impassable. Harith grins, revealing teeth stained by cat. The road will be a memory. The Himyarites will think the desert itself is turned against them. This is classic asymmetrical warfare. Safia knows she can't invade Himyar right now. An amphibious invasion is a logistical nightmare, though. Aksum will actually do exactly that a few decades later. For now, it's cheaper and safer to pay Harith to bleed them. You mount a camelon experience that involves a lot of lurching and groaning from the beast-stand ride inland. You are heading for the Incense Road. This is the artery that pumps wealth into the Himyarite capital of Zafar. As you ride, the landscape shifts from coastal scrub to dramatic, jagged mountains. You hide by day in wadis, sleeping under overhangs to avoid the scorching sun and Himyarite patrols. By night, you move. Tarith is talkative when the sun goes down. He tells you about the Himyarite king. He builds dams, Harith spits. He tries to trap the water. He thinks he owns the rain. But the rain belongs to God. He's talking about the Great Dam of Merib, one of the engineering wonders of the ancient world. It's the heart of Himyarite agriculture. Harith's job is to blow up the dam that's too big a target, but to make the trade routes that rely on it feel unsafe. Here, a quirky fringe tidbit for you. The weapons these raiders are using are just local scrap. You notice the spearheads are made of a distinct dark iron. It's Aksumite iron, but more interestingly, Harith carries a sword that looks suspiciously Roman. It's likely a gladius that was captured, sold, resold, and ended up here. The arms trade in antiquity was just as messy and globalized as it is today. You are watching a proxy war fought with the surplus equipment of empires. On the third night, you reach the ambush point. It's a narrow pass where the caravan track squeezes between two towering cliffs. Harith positions his men high up in the rocks. They don't pile up stones to block the road. That would be too obvious. Instead, they bury themselves in the sand, invisible. Dawn breaks. The caravan appears. It's massive. Hundreds of camels laden with frankincense, resin the tears of the gods. This shipment is likely bound for Gaza and then Rome. The Himyarite guards are well armed, wearing scale armor and riding horses. They look confident, too confident. Harith signals with a bird call, a sharp, piercing cry of a kite. The sand erupts. It's not a battle, it's a massacre. The raiders don't charge in. They unleash a volley of arrows from the high ground. The horses panic in the narrow space. Camels bolt, shedding their precious cargo. The guards try to form a shield wall, but they are fighting ghosts. Then Harith's men descend. They aren't interested in holding ground. They slash the hamstrings of the pack animals. They set fire to the fallen bales of incense. The smell is overpowering. Frankincense is holy incense used in temples to please the gods. Here, burning by the ton in a chaotic ravine, it smells like a funeral for a fortune. The smoke is thick, white, and suffocating. You watch from a safe distance as the Himyarite captain falls, overwhelmed by 3 of Harith's men. The rest of the guards scatter. Harith doesn't steal the cargo. This is the key detail. A bandit steals. A proxy destroyer destroys. He leaves the gold and the spices burning in the dirt. Why? Because if the goods vanish, the merchants might think it's just theft and try again with better guards. But if the goods are destroyed, that sends a message of terror. It says, "This route is cursed. Do not come here." Historians still argue about the extent of Aksumite control in Arabia during this exact period. Some inscriptions suggest they had a foothold. Others say it was purely influence. But looking at the burning caravan, the distinction feels academic. Safia doesn't need to plant a flag here to control the outcome. She just needs to make sure her competitor's product never reaches the market. As the smoke clears, Harith walks over to the Aksumite advisor. "Done," he says. "Tell your queen the northern pass is closed." The advisor nods, and the southern route, next week, Harith promises. You ride away, leaving the carnage behind. The economic impact of this raid will be felt in Rome in about 2 months. The price of incense will spike. The priests will complain. The merchants will blame the Himyarites for failing to secure the roads, and slowly, quietly, the trade will shift. Ships will decide it's safer to bypass the land route entirely and sail directly to Aegilis, where the taxes are high but the pirates are dead. It's a masterclass in market manipulation through violence. But there is a spiritual dimension to this war that is about to become very important. You noticed the Himyarite guards shouting prayers to the Lord of the Jews as they fought. You noticed Harith's men shouting appeals to local tribal gods. Religion is becoming the new fault line. Safia is watching this. She realizes that money and proxies are good, but they are transactional. Harith will fight for her as long as the gold lasts. But if she wants a permanent alliance, if she wants loyalty that transcends the ledger, she needs something stronger. She needs a shared god. Back in Aksum, a massive shift is preparing to take place. The coins you saw earlier with the crescent and disc, they are about to change. The pagan symbols are about to be scrubbed off. A cross is about to take their place. You are about to witness one of the most significant conversions in history. It's not just a moment of spiritual awakening for King Ozana. It's the ultimate diplomatic weapon. By adopting Christianity, Aksum aligns itself spiritually with the Roman Empire, which has already converted, creating a brotherhood of faith that isolates the Jewish Himyarites and the Zoroastrian Persians. But don't think for a second that this conversion is purely pious. In Safia's hands, even the cross is a tool of statecraft. You return to the high capital of Aksum, but the atmosphere has shifted. The drums of the old god Smarum, the war god, Behar the sea god, Aster the sky god are beating a little softer. There is a new sound in the air, the chanting of psalms in Greek and Ge'ez. You walk into the private quarters of King Ozana. He isn't a child playing with monkeys anymore. He is a young man, broad-shouldered, carrying the weight of the crown with a seriousness that borders on grim, and he is not alone. Standing beside him is a man who looks out of place in this highland court. He has the pale skin of a Syrian Greek and wears the simple robes of a philosopher monk. This is Frumentius. Now, the official story, the Sunday school version, is that Frumentius was shipwrecked as a boy, saved by God's grace, and rose to become the tutor of the king, slowly guiding his heart toward the light of Christ through pure piety. And sure, maybe that's true, but you are standing in the room where the decisions are made, and you can see that Frumentius isn't just a holy man. He's a geopolitical mastermind. He is pointing at a map of the Mediterranean. Constantine has changed the world, my king, Frumentius says softly. Rome is no longer the enemy of the faith. It is the shield of it. If Aksum bows to the cross, Aksum sits at the table as a brother, not a stranger. Safia is there too. She is older now, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes are just as sharp. She is listening intently. She understands the calculus. The Himyarites have chosen the law of Moses, she muses. They align themselves with the Jewish communities of the East. The Persians hold to the fire of Zoroaster. If we remain with the old gods, we are alone. This is the Christian conversion strategy. It's a pivot that is as much about trade routes as it is about salvation. By converting, Aksum gains an automatic diplomatic passport into the Byzantine sphere of influence. It means Aksumite merchants in Alexandria, Antioch, and Constantinople are no longer heathens. They are co-religionists. It changes the tax bracket. It changes the trust level. Ozana looks at the coin in his hand, the old design with the crescent and disc. My people know these symbols, he says. To remove them is to risk unrest. To keep them is to risk irrelevance. Frumentius counters gently. The world is turning, Majesty. You must turn with it, or be ground under the wheel. You watch the decision happen. It's not a thunderclap from heaven, it's a nod. Ozana closes his fist over the old coin. Do it, he says. prepare the baptism, and tell the mint master, I have a new design. You head back to the mint, that secure fortress of finance you visited earlier. The mood here is frantic. The Decators are scrapping the old dies. You watch a master artisan working on a new face. He carves the king's profile, same as before. But then, right in the center, between the wheat stalks, he carves a small, equilateral cross. Shutterstock, this is a massive historical moment. You are witnessing the first time a cross ever appears on the coinage of a major empire. Even Rome, which had technically converted under Constantine, was slow to put the cross on its money, preferring safe, ambiguous symbols like the labrum or victory goddesses to avoid offending the pagan majority in the Senate. Azana doesn't care about offending the Senate. He is planting a flag. He is telling the world, we are the kingdom of God in the South. The launch of the new currency is a masterstroke of propaganda. The coins flood north. When a Roman merchant in Egypt gets one of these, he sees the cross. He thinks, they are like us. Suddenly, the barbarians south of the border seem a lot less barbaric and a lot more like allies. You attend the baptism ceremony. It's held in a specially built tank, fed by holy water, blessed by the newly ordained Bishop Frumentius himself, now known as Abba Salama, Father of Peace. Azana steps into the water. The incense smoke is thick frankincense, of course, the smell of wealth burning for God. As he rises, dripping, the crowd cheers. But you notice who is cheering the loudest. It's the merchants. It's the generals. They know what this means. It means access. It means alliances. But here's the quirky fringe tidbit. The conversion isn't a total erasure. You see the common people outside the palace wearing crosses, yes, but they are also wearing amulets of the old protective spirits. The Christianity of Aksum adopts and adapts. It merges with the intense mystical traditions of the highlands. It becomes something unique Athardos Tevahedo. It's not a Roman import. It's an African synthesis. And there is a darker side to this strategy. By declaring Aksum a Christian empire, Azana has just declared war on the Himyarites without sending a single soldier. You travel to a port city a few weeks later. A ship has just arrived from Yemen. The captain looks shaken. The Jewish king in Zafar is furious. He reports to the harbor master. He says Aksum has betrayed the ancestors. He is purging the Christians in his cities. This is the blowback. The Brotherhood of Faith works both ways. It unites you with your friends, but it radicalizes your enemies. The Himyarite king sees Aksum's conversion as a political threat, a sign that Aksum is essentially becoming a Roman client state, even though they aren't. Safia reads the report in the palace. She isn't surprised. Let him purge, she says coldly. Every Christian he harms is a martyr, and every martyr gives us a casus belli, just cause for war. She is weaponizing persecution. She knows that if Himyar attacks Christians, Rome will be outraged. Rome might even send money and ships to help Aksum defend the faith. She has maneuvered Rome into subsidizing her war against her commercial rival. It's Machiavellian, it's brilliant. Historians still argue about the sincerity of Azana's faith. His inscriptions change from son of Maram to Lord of all, and then to explicit Christian formulas. Was it a true spiritual awakening? Probably. People are complex. He could have been a true believer and a savvy politician. The two aren't mutually exclusive. But as you walk through the streets of Aksum, you see the physical transformation. New churches are going up, built in that distinctive Aksumite style with alternating layers of stone and wood sandwich construction. The temples of the old gods are being quietly repurposed. You stop by a scribe's shop. He is copying a text. It's the Gospels being translated into Ge'ez. This is the intellectual infrastructure of the new state. Aksum is creating its own literary tradition, independent of Greek. They are claiming the religion as their own. And then, you spot something strange. A Roman spy, or at least, an informant lipping a message to a caravan driver. You intercept it. Narrator, privileges. It's a letter to the Roman emperor. The king has bathed in the water. The cross is on the gold. They are ours now. You laugh. The Roman doesn't get it. He thinks Aksum has submitted to Rome. He doesn't realize that Aksum has just appropriated Rome's god to validate its own empire. Azana hasn't bowed to Rome. He's looked Rome in the eye and said, "We serve the same boss, so you can't boss me around." The Christian conversion strategy has secured the northern border. It has solidified the trade routes. But it has created a dangerous internal pressure. Not everyone is happy about the new god. There are traditionalists in the court. There are whispers in the shadows. And Rome is fickle. They like a Christian ally, but they fear a powerful one. They see the gold. They see the influence. And some in the Roman Senate are starting to wonder if they've created a monster. As the sun sets over the newly consecrated cathedral, you feel a chill. The diplomatic victory is complete, but the personal danger to the royal family has never been higher. You can't fight an economic war this successfully without making someone want to kill you. And poison, as it turns out, is a very Roman solution to an African problem. You are standing in the shadows of the royal banquet hall, and the air smells of roasted ostrich and honeyed wine. But under the music of the lyres and the polite laughter of the courtiers, there is a vibe that sets your teeth on edge. Paranoia, you see? Success is dangerous. When you bankrupt an empire, humiliate its envoys, and steal its god, people tend to take it personally. Rome has tried diplomacy. They've tried economic pressure. They've even tried ignoring you. None of it worked. So now, they are resorting to the oldest tool in the political shed, the poisoned chalice. The hall is filled with dignitaries. There are local warlords, Persian merchants, and a new delegation from Roman, who smile too much and sweat too little. They are here ostensibly to celebrate Azana's baptism, but you can feel the tension. It's like a room full of people waiting for a bomb to go off. Safia sits at the high table next to her son. She isn't eating, she's watching. Her eyes scan the room, tracking every servant, every poured cup, every hand that moves near a plate. She has built an empire on details, and she knows that the smallest detail, a drop of clear liquid, a pinch of powder, can bring it all crashing down. The focus of the evening is a gift from the Roman Emperor Constantius II. It's a crate of vintage Falernian wine, the Dom Perignon of the ancient world. A servant brings out a large sealed amphora. The Roman legate stands up, raising a toast. To the health of the king, he announces, his voice smooth as oil. May his reign be long and eventful. The amphora is unsealed. The wine is dark, rich, and smells incredible. A servant moves to pour it into the king's cup, but here's where the quirky fringe tidbit comes in. Azana isn't drinking from a gold goblet or a silver chalice. He is drinking from a cup made of rhinoceros horn. In the ancient world, specifically in the trade networks of the Indian Ocean, there was a widespread belief that rhino horn had magical properties. It wasn't just an aphrodisiac, it was a poison detector. The legend said that if poison touched the horn, the cup would sweat, or the liquid would bubble, or the cup would shatter. It was the Geiger counter of the royal table. You watch the wine hit the cup. The Roman legate is watching too. He's stopped breathing. Safia reaches out. Her hand is fast, clamping over Azana's wrist, just as he lifts the cup. "Wait," she says. The music stops. The room goes deadly silent. She doesn't look at the cup. She looks at the Roman. "The emperor is generous," she says, her voice carrying to the back of the hall. But in Aksum, it is custom that the guest drinks first. She gestures for the servant to pour a cup for the legate. The legate freezes, his smile twitches. "Madam," he stammers, I have a stomach condition. My physician forbids wine." "A tragedy," Safia replies, her face like stone. "Then your second incumbent will drink." The second Roman looks like he wants to run. He looks at his boss. He looks at the door. He looks at the guards who have quietly stepped forward, blocking the exits. This is the assassin's goblet moment. It's not about the poison itself. It's about the theater of exposure. Rome thought they could solve their economic problem with a few drops of arsenic or aconite. Instead, they walked into a trap. Safia knew, of course she knew. Her spy network, the spy in the Senate we'll meet later, had likely tipped her off before the ship even left Alexandria. She let them come all this way just to humiliate them. The second Roman takes the cup. His hand is shaking so badly the wine splashes onto his tunic. He lifts it. He hesitates. Then, with a look of pure terror, he drops the cup. Clang, it rolls across the stone floor, spilling the dark red wine-like blood. The room erupts. Guards draw their swords. The Romans are surrounded. But Safia raises a hand. "Peace," she commands. She stands up and walks over to the spilled wine. A palace dog, one of those sleek hunting hounds, laps at the puddle. A few moments later, the dog whimpers, foams at the mouth, and collapses. The evidence is undeniable. It seems, Safia says, looking down at the dead dog, that the vintage has spoiled. She turns to the Roman legate. He is pale, waiting for the execution order. In any other court Persia, Rome, China, he would be dragged out and beheaded right now. But Safia plays a different game. She knows that a dead ambassador is a martyr. A live, humiliated ambassador is a message. Escort our guests back to their ship. She orders the captain of the guard. Let them keep their heads. They will need them to explain to their emperor why they failed. She looks at the legate with cold pity. Tell Constantius that if he wants to kill us, he will have to do it on the battlefield, not at the dinner table. And tell him, she pauses, tell him the price of incense just doubled. The Romans are dragged out, shamed, and broken. Historians still argue whether these assassination attempts were sanctioned by the emperor himself or were the work of rogue governors trying to curry favor. The poison plot is a common trope in ancient histories, often used to slander enemies. But given the economic stakes, the gold, the silk, the shipping net, is entirely plausible that Rome tried to decapitate the Aksumite leadership. The timeline fits, the motive fits. As the doors close, the party doesn't restart. The mood is shattered. Azana looks at the rhino horn cup. He looks at his mother. They fear us, he says quietly. Good, she replies. Fear is a currency, and we just minted a lot of it. You walk out onto the balcony. The night air is cool. You realize that this was the point of no return. Up until tonight, there was a pretense of friendship, a facade of diplomatic niceties. That facade is gone. Rome has shown its hand. They are desperate, and a desperate enemy makes mistakes. Safia's mercy wasn't mercy, it was strategy. By sending them back, she spreads the story of her invincibility. She becomes the queen who cannot be killed, the silent regent who sees the poison before it is poured, but the attempt has changed her. You can see it in the way she grips the balcony railing. Her knuckles are white. She knows she can never relax again. She can never trust a gift, a letter, or a smile from the north. She turns to her advisors. The treasury, she snaps. Open the vaults. We are going to flood the market. Fly it, Highness. They tried to poison our king, she says, her eyes hard. We are going to poison their economy. Release the gold. All of it. By every grain shipment in Egypt. By every timber log in Lebanon. Leave them nothing but their hunger. This is the retaliation. Not a war of swords, but a war of total economic strangulation. She is going to initiate the great deflation, a masterstroke that will make Roman money so worthless that people will start using it as wallpaper. You better get your basket ready. We are heading to a Roman market town, and money is about to rain from the sky. But only the right kind of money. You step off the boat in Alexandria, the second greatest city of the Roman Empire, and you immediately feel the panic. It's not a panic born of fire or plague. It's a quiet, desperate panic that smells like sweat and ink. You are walking into an economic crime scene. Safia's order to open the vaults has hit this city like a tidal wave. But instead of water, she flooded the market with liquidity. You walk into the forum, the beating heart of commerce. It's chaos. You see a Roman citizen, a man in a respectable tunic, arguing with a baker. He is holding a sack of Roman numi, copper coins that have been washed with a thin layer of silver that has long since rubbed off. He pours them onto the counter. It's a mountain of metal. It's not enough, the baker says, not even looking up. It's 5,000 denarii. The citizen screams, for a loaf of bread, flour is scarce. The baker shrugs. The Southerners bought it all. This is the weaponization of purchasing power. Aksumite agents have been sweeping through the Delta, buying grain, oil, and glass at premium prices. But they aren't paying in Roman trash. They are paying in that crisp, high-purity Aksumite gold you saw being minted earlier. You watch an agent, a tall man speaking fluent Greek with an African accent approach, a textile merchant. He points to the entire stock of linen. He drops a single Aksumite gold coin onto the table. The merchant grabs the coin like it's a life raft. He ignores the Roman citizen standing next to him. He practically throws the linen at the Aksumite. This is the great deflation of Roman authority. In economics, bad money usually drives out good Gresham's law. But in a collapsing state, good money kills bad money. Nobody wants the emperor's face anymore. They want the cross of Aksum. You wander deeper into the city. You see price lists chiseled into stone walls, the emperor's desperate attempt to fix prices by decree. 1 pint of beer for denarii. People are leaning against the wall, laughing at it. the real price is whispered. The real price is calculated in Aksumite weight. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit for you. During this monetary crisis, the Roman currency became so worthless that people stopped counting coins and started weighing sacks of them. But it got even weirder. Archaeologists have found hoards where people took Roman coins and chiseled out the emperor's face, effectively demonetizing them as political objects and just treating them as raw lumps of bad bronze. It was a petty, furious act of vandalism against the state. But if you pull an Aksumite coin from your pocket here, you are a king. You walk into a tavern and slap that gold on the table. The noise stops. The owner brings you the best wine, the best seat, and probably offers to shine your sandals personally. You sit down next to a Roman tax collector. He looks like a man who is watching his world dissolve. He has a ledger open. "I can't collect," he whispers to you, mistaking you for a sympathetic ear. "They pay me in sacks of copper that are worth less than the canvas the sack is made of. But when I try to buy supplies for the legion, the merchants demand the southern gold." He gestures to the street. "We are a colony now. We just don't know it yet. The emperor rules the land, but the queen rules the market." Historians still argue about the extent of this currency penetration. Did Aksumite coins essentially become the euro of late antiquity in the Red Sea region? Some hoards found in India and the Levant suggest they did, while Roman gold, the solidus, eventually stabilized for this specific window of time. Aksumite currency was the trusted standard that bridged the gap between Rome, Persia, and India. Sophia has effectively achieved a hostile takeover of the provincial economy. By buying up the resources, she has created shortages for the Romans. The legions are hungry because the grain is on ships heading south to Aksum. The artisans are idle because the raw materials are in Aksumite warehouses. The tax collector takes a swig of cheap, watered-down wine. "They say she has sorcerers," he mutters. "They say she turns the wheat to dust if we touch it." "No sorcery," you correct him. "Just supply and demand." He looks at you blankly. He doesn't get it. Rome never understood that an economy is a living thing, not a stone monument you can command. You leave the tavern and head toward the harbor. You see the grain ships leaving. They aren't flying the Roman eagle. They are flying the Aksumite standard. They are carrying the harvest of Egypt away from Rome back to the highlands to feed the builders of the stele, the soldiers of the proxy wars, and the growing population of the new Christian capital. It's a wealth transfer on a continental scale. But as you watch the ships leave, you hear a sound that cuts through the market noise. It's not the clink of coins. It's the rhythmic, heavy thud of marching feet. The Roman garrison is mobilizing. You see a centurion shouting orders. He looks angry. He looks hungry. Rome has realized that it can't buy food, so it's going to try to take it. The Cold War of economics is about to get hot. They aren't going to invade Aksum, that's suicide. But they are going to try to seize the trade routes by force. They are going to send the legions into the borderlands to confiscate what they can't afford. Sophia expected this. She knew that eventually the debtor attacks the creditor. You need to move. You need to get back to the border. Because the defense against a desperate Roman legion isn't a wall, and it isn't a bank account. It's something much louder, much heavier, and significantly more terrifying. You're about to meet the Aksumite tank division, and unlike modern tanks, these run on peanuts. Well, technically acacia leaves and grassland. They have a really bad temper. Shutterstock, you leave the frantic markets of the coast and head inland to the dusty, scrub-covered plains that separate the Aksumite highlands from the Roman frontier in Nubia. You are looking for the border patrol, but you don't need a map to find them. You just need to put your ear to the ground. The earth isn't just vibrating here, it's throbbing. A rhythmic, heavy percussion that travels through your boots and into your teeth. You crest a small ridge, and there they are, the heavy armored division of the ancient world, the Elephant Corps. Now, before you picture the massive Lord of the Rings-style Mumakil, let's get the biology right. These aren't the gigantic African bush elephants of the deep savanna. Those are too wild, too aggressive, and frankly, too big to tame. These are likely the now extinct North African forest elephants, or a smaller subspecies from the Eritrean highlands. They are about the size of a large Indian elephant, compact, angry, and intelligent. You are riding well, trying to ride a skittish horse alongside the column. The smell is a mixture of musk, old leather, and fear. Even your horse knows it's in the presence of an apex predator. Leading the column is a beast named Xena, which means glory or news fame. She is draped in heavy, quilted cotton armor, dyed a deep crimson. On her back, strapped tight with leather girths, is a wooden howdah carrying 2 archers. Sitting on her neck is the mahout, the driver, holding a sharp iron hook called an ankus. This isn't just a military unit, it's a mobile toll booth. You watch as they patrol the trade route. This road is the lifeline for smugglers trying to bypass Safia's customs houses. If you're a merchant trying to sneak a few bales of cotton past the tax collector, seeing a Roman centurion is bad. Seeing Xena is a catastrophe. Up ahead, you spot a cloud of dust. It's a caravan. They aren't flying the Aksumite flag. They are moving fast, off-road, trying to cut through a wadi to reach the Nile without paying the 10% duty. The Aksumite commander doesn't shout. He just signals to the trumpeter. A long, mournful blast from a kudu horn echoes across the plains. Xena's ears flare out. She speeds up. An elephant running is a terrifying thing. It doesn't look like it's moving fast because the stride is so long, but it eats up the ground. The ground shakes with every footfall. Thud, thud, thud. The smugglers spot the dust cloud. They stop. There is no point in running. You can't outrun an elephant on loose sand, and you certainly can't fight one. You pull up alongside as the patrol surrounds the smugglers. The smugglers' camels are panicking, spitting and kicking. The elephants just stand there swaying slightly, their trunks testing the air. The Aksumite commander looks down from his perch, 10 feet in the air. "You seem lost," he says, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "The customs house is that way." The smuggler captain, a sweaty man from Bernice, looks at the tusks of the elephant. He looks at the archers who have arrows knocked and aimed at his chest. We were avoiding a rock slide. He lies weakly, of course. The commander nods, and in your confusion, you forgot to weigh your cargo. We can help with that. This is the reality of the elephant cavalry. Historians still argue vehemently about the extent of their tactical use in pitched battles. Did they charge into Roman lines like tanks, or were they primarily used for logistics, intimidation, and ceremonial shock and awe? But out here on the border, the debate is irrelevant. As a psychological weapon, they are nuclear. They project the power of the queen into the wildest, emptiest spaces of the map. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit for you, to keep these animals aggressive and fearless. Some ancient sources suggest they were fed a mixture of wine and mulberry juice before a confrontation. It sounds like a frat party gone wrong, but the sugar and alcohol would give them a buzz that made them less likely to panic at the sight of fire or spears. Looking at Xena, who is eyeing the smuggler's horse with a distinct lack of patience, you hope she's sober today. The smugglers are escorted back to the main road. They aren't killed. That would be a waste. They are fined heavily. They are forced to hand over half their cargo as a penalty. You watch the transaction. The commander takes the goods bolts of linen and jars of wine and loads them onto a baggage elephant. It's efficient. It's brutal. But as you ride with the patrol, you realize something else. These animals are expensive. An elephant eats about 300 pounds of food a day. Maintaining a herd like this is a massive drain on the treasury. It's a flex. It's Safia saying, "I am so rich, I can afford to feed an army of giants just to scare you." It's also a direct challenge to Rome's self-image. Rome loves elephants. They use them in the Colosseum for games. They stamp them on coins to symbolize victory. But Rome has had access to a steady supply of war elephants since they defeated Carthage centuries ago. Aksum is the only power in the region that still fields them. It's a visual reminder. We have what you lost. You camp with the unit that night. The soldiers are relaxed, cooking lentils over a fire. The elephants are tethered nearby, munching on mountains of hay. The mahouts sleep leaning against the animals' legs. There is a bond here, a deep interspecies trust. One of the soldiers, a veteran with a scar running through his beard, offers you a cup of telebeer. "The Romans call us barbarians," he laughs. "But have you seen their legions? They march in straight lines. They fight by the book." He gestures to the massive gray shapes in the darkness. "We fight with the earth itself. When the ground shakes, the Roman loses his footing. And a man who cannot stand, cannot fight." He's right. The terrain is Aksum's ally, the mountains, the heat, the animals, but there is a weakness. You notice the commander checking the feet of one of the elephants. The rocky ground is hard on their pads. If an elephant goes lame, the unit stops. It's a fragile power, dependent on biology, and Rome knows this. You've heard whispers that Roman agents have been trying to bribe the Mahouds. They aren't trying to buy the elephants. They're trying to buy the secrets of their training. They want to know how to counter them. They are digging pits with spikes on the border roads. They are training special units of villetes, skirmishers armed with fire arrows and axes to target the trunks. The economic war is bleeding into a tactical war. As you drift off to sleep, listening to the heavy breathing of the elephants, you realize that this patrol is just the first line of defense. Behind you lies the wealth of the empire. Ahead of you lies a hungry, desperate Roman province. And the man in charge of that province is getting desperate. He's writing letters to the emperor, begging for help. He's realizing that his legions, unpaid and underfed, are no match for a queen who controls the gold, the grain, and the monsters. We are going to jump over the border now. We are going to sneak into the governor's palace in Egypt to see what it looks like when a superpower realizes it's broke. You're about to read the mail of a man who knows he is doomed. You leave the thundering percussion of the elephant corps and the dust of the borderlands. We are jumping north, down the Nile, to the very heart of Roman administration in Africa, the governor's palace in Alexandria. But if you re-expecting marble columns gleaming in the sun and men in pristine white togas discussing philosophy, you're in the wrong century. This is the late empire. Things have ... slid. You are standing in the Scrinium, the private office of the Praefectus Egypti, the prefect of Egypt. His name is Flavius. He is a man who spent his youth dreaming of glory, in his middle age drowning in paperwork. The room is stiflingly hot. The shutters are closed to keep out the glare, but they can't keep out the noise of the city, a city that is hungry, angry, and broke. Flavius is sitting at a desk that is far too large for him. He's slumped over, head in his hands. A fly buzzes around a half-eaten bowl of figs that are starting to ferment in the heat. Scattered across the desk are stacks of papyrus scrolls. These are the arteries of the empire, the correspondence that keeps the massive Roman machine moving. But right now, the machine is seizing up. You lean over his shoulder. You have narrator privileges, so you can read the Latin cursive that looks like chicken scratch to the untrained eye. These are the intercepted letters, the raw, unfiltered panic of a bureaucrat realizing the game is up. The first letter is a draft, heavily crossed out. It's addressed to the Emperor Constantius II, to the Divine Augustus, ... Regarding the tax shipment for the indiction of the 12th year, ... delays due to he's crossed out incompetence and written unforeseen climatic events. He's crossed out rebellion and written local administrative friction. But the real story is in the letter he just received. It's from the commander of the garrison at Syene, the southern frontier fort. You pick it up. The ink is smudged, as if written by a hand that was shaking ore covered in grit. Prefect, it reads, dispensing with the usual flowery titles. The men will not take the copper. They threw the last shipment into the river. They demand the southern gold. If I do not pay them in weight by the calends, they have threatened to elect a new commander. Or worse, they have threatened to go south and work for her, Safia. They don't even name the queen anymore. She's just a force of nature. Flavius groans. He rubs his temples. He knows what this means. The Roman legions, the terrifying iron fist that conquered the known world, are turning into mercenaries. And Rome is the employer who just missed payroll. Here is the mainstream historical fact. The late Roman army was increasingly barbarized and localized. Soldiers were often paid in kind food uniforms. Supplies, because the currency was so debased, it was practically worthless. This system, called the annona, was a desperate attempt to keep the army functioning without money. But you can't save for retirement in bushels of wheat. The soldiers wanted gold, and the only gold around was Aksumite. Flavius reaches for another scroll. This one is from a tax collector in the Delta. The villages are empty, it complains. The farmers have hidden the harvest. When we interrogate them, they say the grain is already sold. They show us receipts stamped with the cross of Aksum. They say the queen pays in advance, the emperor pays in promises. How can I collect taxes from ghosts? This is the paper tiger reality. On a map, the Roman Empire looks solid. It's a big red splash of color covering the Mediterranean. But in this office, you see the truth. It's a hollow shell. The loyalty of the people has been bought out from under them. Flavius stands up and paces the room. He looks at a bust of the emperor in the corner. The marble eyes stare back, blank and demanding. He wants money, Flavius mutters, to the empty room. He wants legions for the Persian front. He wants grain for Constantinople. And he sends me ... lead. He opens a small leather pouch on his desk. He spills the contents. It's a pile of the new imperial coins. They are dark, ugly little things. You pick one up, it feels greasy. It's supposed to be silver, but the copper is leaching through. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit for you. In moments of extreme desperation like this, some provincial governors actually resorted to leather, money-issuing stamped pieces of hide as temporary promissory notes to troops. It was basically an IOU that said, "We promise to pay you in real money when the shipment arrives." Imagine trying to pay a Roman legionary, a man trained to kill with a short sword, with a piece of dried cow skin. It went about as well as you'd expect. Flavius sits back down and dips his reed pen in ink. He has to make a choice. He can tell the emperor the truth that Aksum has won the economic war and likely be executed for treason or incompetence, or he can lie. He starts writing, "The province is secure. The tax revenue is merely delayed by ... seasonal storms. The loyalty of the troops is absolute. He is building a paper fortress to hide the reality. He is the paper tiger's keeper." But the most damning document isn't a letter to the emperor. It's a private note tucked under a stack of invoices. It's from a merchant in Agilis, one of those Roman defectors we met in the coffee house. "Old friend," it reads. "The climate here is agreeable. The wine is sweet, and the ledgers balance. There is a villa overlooking the sea. It requires an administrator who understands numbers. Perhaps it is time to retire. It's a job offer." You watch Flavius stare at this note. The temptation is written all over his face. He is the highest official of Rome in Africa, and he is considering defecting to become an accountant for the enemy. Why? Because the enemy pays in 98% pure gold. This brings us to the open scholarly debate. Did the Roman Empire fall because of barbarian invasions, or did it essentially bankrupt itself from the inside? Many modern economic historians lean toward the latter. The fall wasn't a singular event where barbarians stormed the gates. It was a long, slow process where the state simply lost the capacity to pay for its own existence. Aksum didn't push Rome off a cliff. Aksum just stopped lending them the rope to climb back up. Flavius sighs a long, rattling breath that seems to deflate his entire body. He takes the job offer and holds it over the flame of his oil lamp. He watches it burn. He's too Roman to leave, or too scared. He chooses the lie. He seals the letter to the emperor with hot wax and presses his ring into it. "Send it," he croaks to a slave waiting by the door. You watch the slave leave. That letter will travel for weeks. It will arrive in Constantinople or Milan. The emperor will read it and think, "Good, Egypt is stable." He will plan a new campaign based on money that doesn't exist and soldiers who won't fight. Flavius has just doomed the legions. By hiding the bankruptcy, he prevents any fix. As you walk out of the palace, past the guards who are gambling with dice using Aksumite coins, you realize the power of what Safia has done. She hasn't just drained the gold, she has broken the information loop. Rome is flying blind. But if Rome is blind, Aksum is watching with 1,000 eyes. Flavius thinks he's alone in his office. He thinks his private turmoil is secret, but he's wrong. Remember that slave, the one who took the letter, the one who saw him burn the job offer. He didn't just take the letter to the courier, he made a copy. You are about to see just how deep the rabbit hole goes. We are leaving the dusty offices of Egypt and heading to the very center of the world, or so it thinks. We are going to Rome itself, or the current seat of the Senate, because Safia doesn't just have spies in the governor's palace, she has a listener in the Senate house. And this spy isn't a slave. He's wearing a toga with a broad purple stripe. You leave the sweating, desperate office of the prefect in Egypt and take a massive leap across the Mediterranean. You are landing in the eternal city itself, Rome. But this isn't the Rome of Augustus, all white marble and triumphant parades. This is late antiquity Rome. It's a city that feels like a party the morning after empty wine cups on the floor, stains on the carpet, and a pervasive sense that the best days are definitely in the rearview mirror. The emperor is often away in Constantinople or Milan, but the Senate still sits here, clutching the robes of its ancient dignity, pretending it still rules the world. You walk into the Curia Julia, the Senate house. The air is cool, smelling of old stone and unwashed wool. The light streams in through the high windows, illuminating dust motes that dance in the shafts of sun like tiny suspended lies. You are here to watch a debate. The topic? The Southern question. A senator is speaking. He's a blustering red-faced man named Cassius. He is demanding war. The insolence of the Ethiopians cannot be brooked. He thunders, his voice echoing off the brick walls. They tax our ships. They hoard our gold. We must send the legions south. We must burn Agilus to the waterline. There is a murmur of agreement. The old Roman pride is easily stoked. War sounds good. War sounds profitable if you win. Then another man stands up. This is Senator Valerius. He is elegant, composed, and wearing a toga with a purple stripe that is suspiciously vibrant, likely dyed, with high-quality indigo imported. Ironically, via Aksum, he raises a hand, not in anger, but in weary reason. Conscript Fathers Valerius begins, his voice smooth as polished granite. Cassius speaks with the fire of Mars. But let us look at the ledger of Mercury. He pulls out a scroll. To send a legion to Agilus requires a fleet. To build a fleet requires timber, which we lack. It requires gold to pay the rowers, which we lack. And even if we burn Agilus, what then? Do we occupy the mountains? Do we fight the elephants in their own home? He pauses, looking around the room. Why spend blood to conquer a rock, when we can simply negotiate a better treaty? Let us not be rash. Let us be prudent. The mood shifts. The senators look at each other. They are old. They are rich. They don't want to pay the war tax that Cassius is proposing. Valerius is giving them an excuse to do nothing. He is giving them a permission slip to be lazy. Motion for a diplomatic envoy, the presiding magistrate calls. The vote passes. War is averted. Cassius sits down, fuming. Valerius smiles, a small, tight smile that vanishes as quickly as it appeared. You follow Valerius as he leaves the Senate House. He walks through the forum, ignoring the beggars and the street vendors selling amulets. He heads toward the upscale district near the Trajan's Market. He enters a shop that sells exotic perfumes and spices. The shop smells of another world's cinnamon, myrrh, and that unmistakable heavy scent of frankincense. The owner is a Syrian, a man with eyes that miss nothing. Valerius doesn't buy anything. He walks to the back, picks up a small alabaster jar of nard, smells it, and puts it down. The wind blows from the south, Valerius says quietly, and the harvest is good. The Syrian replies, it's a code, innocuous, boring, and deadly. The Syrian hands him a small packet wrapped in oilskin. It looks like a receipt. Valerius tucks it into the folds of his toga. You assume it's a bribe. A bag of diamonds? A promissory note? No. You look closer with your narrator, Zure Vision. It's a bill of lading. It guarantees that a shipment of silk currently sitting in a warehouse in Agilus has been transferred to Valerius's name. This is the spy in the Senate. He isn't James Bond breaking into a safe. He is a lobbyist. Sophia hasn't just bought information. She has bought policy. She realized that it is infinitely cheaper to bribe a senator to stop a war than it is to fight the war. Think about the ROI return on investment. A war might cost Aksum millions in gold and thousands of lives. Bribing Valerius a few crates of silk, it is the most efficient defense spending in history. You walk with Valerius to his villa on the Palatine Hill. It's a magnificent place, filled with statues and mosaics. But you notice something. The statues are Greek. The ivory inlays on his furniture are African. The pepper in his kitchen is Indian. His entire lifestyle is subsidized by the very trade network he is protecting. He sits in his garden, pouring himself a cup of wine, Aksumite vintage. Naturally, he opens the packet again. He isn't reading a secret message from Safia. He doesn't need to. He knows what she wants. Paralysis. She wants Rome to argue, to debate, to delay. As long as the Senate is talking, the legions are not marching. Historians still argue about the extent of foreign lobbying in the late Roman Senate. We know that barbarian kings often had patrons in Rome who looked out for their interests. But the idea of a systematic, commercially driven influence campaign by a rival superpower, it's a terrifyingly modern concept. It suggests that Safia understood the Roman political system better than the Romans did. She knew that a republic, or what was left of it, could be gridlocked by a few well-placed voices. Valerius takes a sip of wine. He looks at the sunset. He doesn't see himself as a traitor. In his mind, he is a pragmatist. He is saving Rome from a costly, unwinnable war. He tells himself he is a patriot. That is the genius of Safia's operation. She doesn't turn men into villains. She turns them into rationalizers. But there is a risk. You spot a slave watching Valerius from the shadows of the peristyle. This slave isn't looking at him with fear, but with calculation. The slave knows, and in a city like Rome, secrets are just another currency. If Cassius, the Warhawk senator, ever finds out where Valerius gets his silk, the purge will be bloody. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit for you. The Romans were obsessed with conspiracy theories. They believed in the evil eye, curses, and secret societies. But they often missed the real conspiracies happening right in front of them because they were too focused on the supernatural. While they were checking chicken entrails for omens, Sophia was checking the balance sheets. As night falls over the 7 hills, you feel a shift in the air. The wind is picking up. It's hot, stifling. It's not a political wind this time. It's a biological one. The ships arriving from the east aren't just carrying silken bribes anymore. They are carrying a passenger that doesn't need a visa. It's microscopic. It lives in the gut of a flea, which lives on the back of a black rat, which is currently scurrying down a mooring rope in the port of Pelusium. The economic war is about to be interrupted by the Great Leveler. The plague is coming. And while you might think a pandemic would hurt trade, Sophia is about to show you how to turn the apocalypse into a profit margin. But to see that, we have to leave the luxury of the Palatine Hill and go to the quarantine zones. Put on your mask. It's about to get grim. Shutterstock, you leave the whispering shadows of the Roman Senate and the moral rot of the aristocracy. You are heading back to the waterfront, but this time the danger isn't political, it's biological. You are standing on the docks of Pelusium, the gateway to Egypt. The air is hot, heavy, and smells of unwashed bodies and fear. Usually, this place is a riot of noise, stevedores shouting, cranes creaking, gulls screaming. Today, it's eerily quiet. You see a ship drifting into the harbor. It's a Roman grain freighter. It lists slightly to port. The sails are tattered, flapping uselessly in the gentle breeze. There is no one at the helm. A harbor patrol boat rows out to inspect it. You watch through a spyglass. The patrol captain climbs aboard. He walks a few steps, looks into the hold, and then immediately he screams at his rowers to back away. "Burn it!" he yells. "Burn it to the water." Archers on the seawall launch fire arrows. The ship catches fast, the dry timber turning into a funeral pyre. The smoke that drifts over the city carries a scent that makes your skin crawl. The plague has arrived. Whether this is the tail end of the plague of Cyprian or the terrifying precursor to the plague of Justinian, historians argue about the exact timing and identification of these ancient pandemics. The effect on the economy is the same: total paralysis. You walk through the streets of the port city. Doors are painted with red crosses. Carts rumble by. The Roman economy, which relies on the constant movement of people and goods, is suffering a stroke. But then, you see something strange. In a cordoned-off section of the harbor, far from the infection zones, there is activity. Men with cloth masks wrapped around their faces are unloading cargo. But they aren't touching the Roman stevedores. They aren't even getting close. They are using a drop zone. You watch an Aksumite ship pull up to a floating pontoon. The crew unloads crates of spices, ivory, and crucially medicinal resins like myrrh. They leave them on the pontoon and row back to their ship. They wash the crates with vinegar. Then, and only then, do the local merchants come to pick them up, leaving payment in gold and a bucket of strong wine. This is the Aksumite firewall. While Rome is collapsing into chaos, attempting to pray the sickness away, Sophia has implemented a ruthless quarantine protocol. She understands that the disease travels with the trade, so she decouples the contact while keeping the goods flowing. You travel south, away from the dying Mediterranean coast, back toward the Aksumite border. You expect to see the sickness spreading here too. Instead, you see barriers. The elephant corps you met earlier. They aren't catching smugglers anymore. They are enforcing a cordon sanitaire. You see a caravan trying to enter Aksumite territory from Egypt. The guards stop them miles from the nearest town. Wait 40 days, the commander orders. The biblical quarantina. If you are still alive in 40 days, you can enter. If not, well, the vultures have to eat too. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit for you. Ancient Aksumite medicine was surprisingly advanced in terms of hygiene. They used the root of the untold plant soapberry as a detergent. It's a potent molicicide and cleaner. While Romans were frequenting public baths that were essentially giant bacteria soups, Aksumites were washing their clothes and bodies with a substance that actually killed parasites. It might have been one of the reasons the highlands remained relatively insulated from the worst waves of disease. But the real story here is the profit. You sit in a trading post, just inside the safe zone. An Aksumite merchant is looking at a ledger. He looks calm. The price of myrrh has tripled, he notes. The Romans think it purifies the air. They burn it in the streets to chase away the miasma. And does it? You ask. Who knows? He shrugs, but they pay in gold. This is the dark genius of the Aksumite position. They control the very substances the world believes will save them. Frankincense and myrrh aren't just perfumes anymore. They are essential medical supplies. Aksum has a monopoly on hope. Safia, back in her mountain stronghold, is watching the world burn and selling the fire extinguishers. She ramps up production. She orders the harvesting of every gum resin tree in the empire. She knows that in a plague, luxury goods like silk might drop in value, but survival goods go to the moon. She pivots the entire economy from vanity to emergency response. There is a scholarly debate here that gets heated. Some ancient Roman chroniclers, like Procopius, tried to blame the plague on Ethiopia, claiming it originated there and spread north. For centuries, this was the accepted narrative: Africa as the source of disease. But modern genetics and archaeology often point to Central Asia or local reservoirs. It's very likely that Aksum was framed. The Romans, looking for a scapegoat, pointed at the mysterious empire to the south and said, it came from them. It was an ancient smear campaign. But Safia doesn't care about the PR. She cares about the balance sheet. You watch a Roman senator, or what's left of him, arriving at the border. He's fleeing the city. He offers a bag of jewels for safe passage into the high, clean air of the Ethiopian mountains. The guard takes the jewels. He dunks them in vinegar, then he points back north. The queen says the mountains are full. Go home, it's cold, it's heartless, but it saves the empire. By refusing refugees, Aksum prevents the vector from entering the population centers. While Rome loses a third of its population, Aksum remains a functioning state. As the plague burns itself out over the next few years, the geopolitical landscape changes permanently. Rome is depopulated, its tax base is shattered, its army is a shadow. Aksum, meanwhile, is flush with cash and demographically stable. The balance of power hasn't just tipped, it has capsized. But there is a danger in this isolation. When you close your doors to the world, you also close your eyes. While Aksum was looking inward, guarding its health, the local merchants, the little guys, started getting restless. They saw the queen making millions while they were restricted by quarantine laws and tariffs. They started to wonder, why do we need the queen to trade? Why can't we just deal with the desperate Romans directly? You are about to witness the internal betrayal. The external enemies, Rome, Persia, germs, have been defeated, but the internal enemy is just waking up. You head back to the port of Agellis. The quarantine is lifting. The ships are sailing again. But there is a meeting happening in a warehouse that Safia wasn't invited to. The merchants are forming a cartel of their own, and they plan to bypass the royal monopoly. They are about to learn that Safia's silent network has ears even in the walls of a warehouse, and her reaction to tax evasion makes the plague look like a mild cold. You are crouching behind a stack of tick logs in a damp warehouse on the outskirts of Agellis. The air here smells of wet wood, rat droppings, and the metallic temps of anxiety. It's well past curfew. The city is asleep, the lighthouse blinking rhythmically in the distance, but inside this cavernous room, a dozen men are huddled around a lantern, speaking in hushed, furious whispers. These aren't pirates. They aren't Roman spies. These are the pillars of the community. Shipowners, caravan masters, men who dine with bishops and have their own reserved pews in the new churches. This is the betrayal of the merchants. 30% spits a man named Hani. He's a wealthy spice trader with rings on every finger. She takes 30% off the top for the royal protection, then another 10% for the harbor fee, then the church tithe. We are taking all the risk, and she is taking all the profit. The plague years were hard, another man murmurs. We lost ships, we lost crews, and still the palace demanded its share. They nod. The resentment in the room is palpable. You are witnessing the inevitable friction of a centralized economy. Safia's command and control model saved the empire during the crisis, but now that the crisis is fading, the survivors want their cut. They are tired of being the golden goose. They want to be the farmer. Hani outlines the plan. It's bold. The Star of the South sails tomorrow night, he whispers. "We have bribed the harbormaster's deputy." The manifest will say, "Grain and lentils, low tax." But the hold, he grins, his gold tooth flashing in the lantern light. The hold is full of ivory and tortoiseshell, the real cargo. They are going to smuggle millions in luxury goods right under the Queen's nose, sell it directly to independent Roman buyers at a secret rendezvous point down the coast, and pocket the difference. It's the ancient equivalent of offshore banking. No seals, Hanny warns, no royal stamps. This is our gold. The meeting breaks up. They shake hands, a secret pact of tax evasion. But as Hanny leaves the warehouse, walking briskly through the dark alleys, you notice a shadow detach itself from a doorway. It's a beggar, wrapped in rags, pretending to sleep. As soon as Hanny passes, the beggar stands up, pulls a small piece of charcoal from his pocket, and makes a mark on the wall. Safia doesn't just watch the Romans, she watches her own. The next night, you are at the docks. The Star of the South is being loaded. It looks innocent enough. Sacks of lentils are piled high on the deck. Hanny is there, supervising, looking nervous but triumphant. The deputy harbormaster is there too, looking at his feet, sweating despite the cool sea breeze. The ropes are cast off. The sails unfurl. The ship begins to move away from the pier. Hanny lets out a breath he's been holding for a week. He's done it. He's beaten the system. And then the water explodes. It's not a sea monster. It's the Bear Nagash, the Lord of the Sea. This is the title of the Supreme Admiral of the Aksumite fleet, a title that will resonate through Ethiopian history for centuries. His flagship, a massive war galley painted black, surges out from behind the breakwater, where it had been waiting. It doesn't fire. It simply rams the Star of the South gently, just enough to shatter the steering or crunch. The merchant ship spins helplessly. Hanny freezes on the dock. He turns to run, but the land exit is blocked. A phalanx of the Queen's personal guard, the Saruit, marches onto the pier. They aren't smiling, but here is the twist. They don't arrest Hanny. They don't drag him away in chains. That would be too simple. An official steps forward. He's carrying a ledger and a torch. He walks up to Hanny. "Citizen," the official says loudly, so the gathering crowd of sailors and dock workers can hear. There seems to be a clerical error. "Your manifest says lentils." He signals to the soldiers on the ship. They slash open the sacks. Ivory tusks spill out, clattering onto the deck like accusatory bones. "Ah," the official says mockingly, "these represent a very heavy form of lentil." Hanny stammers, I can explain. A mistake in loading, ... "No mistake," the official interrupts. "The Queen is merciful. She does not wish to imprison a man of your stature. She simply wishes to correct the accounting." He opens the ledger. "Since this cargo was undeclared, it is now forfeit. All of it. Furthermore, since you attempted to defraud the crown, your trade license is revoked. Your warehouses are seized to cover the investigation costs, and your ships." He looks at the beautiful vessel spinning in the harbor. "Your ships are now the property of the Navy." Hanny falls to his knees. "This is ruin. You take my life." "No," the official corrects him cold-heartedly. "We take your livelihood. You may live, you may work. I believe the salt mines are hiring." This is the brutal efficiency of Safia's justice. She doesn't make martyrs. She makes paupers. She strips them of the one thing they value more than breath, their status. By bankrupting Hanny publicly, she sends a terrifying message to every other merchant in the city. "You can try to cheat me, but I will not just kill you. I will turn you into a nobody." You watch as soldiers swarm Hanny's other ships in the harbor. They paint the royal seal over his family crest. It's a hostile takeover in the most literal sense. Historians still debate the relationship between the Aksumite monarchy and the merchant class. Some argue it was a partnership. Others, looking at the sheer centralization of the coinage and trade, argue it was a command economy where the merchants were essentially state agents on a leash. This scene suggests the latter. The moment the merchants tried to assert independence, the state crushed them. Here, as a quirky fringe tidbit, there is evidence that Aksumite authorities used a specific type of nator seal on their grain sacks that was incredibly difficult to replicate a primitive, tamper-evident technology. If a merchant tried to open a sack and replace the high-quality teff with cheap barley, the broken knot would give them away immediately. It was a bureaucracy built on distrust. As the sun rises over Agellis, the Star of the South is being towed away to the royal dry dock. Hanny is gone, vanished into the anonymity of the poor. The remaining merchants are lining up at the customs house, terrified, practically throwing money at the tax collectors to ensure their paperwork is perfect. Safia has secured the home front. She has reminded the moneymen who actually owns the gold. But back in the palace, time is doing what no Roman assassin could. Safia is old. Her hands shake when she holds the quill. Her eyes, though still sharp, are clouding with cataracts, and Azana, the boy who played with monkeys. He is a grown man now. He is a king in full, a conqueror, a convert. He has watched his mother rule from the shadows for decades. He respects her. Yes, he fears her, maybe. But a king cannot live in his mother's shadow forever. You are about to witness the passing of the torch. But in Aksum, you don't just hand over a crown. You hand over a philosophy. Safia has one last lesson to teach her son before she fades into the history books. It's a lesson about the true nature of the metal they have spent a lifetime hoarding. We are going to the royal treasury, the deep vaults, where the blood of the earth is kept. It's time for the final audit. You leave the saltwater smell of the coast and the ruin of the merchant Hani behind. You are back in the highlands, deep within the bedrock beneath the palace of Dungur. It is cold down here. The air is still and dry, designed to preserve parchment and metal. You are walking with two figures. One is King Azana, now a man in his prime, wearing the lion-skin cloak of a conqueror. He walks with the heavy, confident stride of a man who has led armies into the burning sands of Kush and returned victorious. The other figure is Safia. She is much smaller now. Time has shrunk her. She walks with a cane made of black ebony, tapping it rhythmically against the stone floor. Tap, tap, tap. They reach a massive door made of cedar wood, reinforced with bands of bronze. It has no keyhole. It is guarded by men who have had their tongues removed, brutal, ancient security measure to ensure no passwords can be tortured out of them. They bow as the queen approaches and pull the heavy bars. You enter the heart of the empire. The treasury of Aksum isn't just a pile of loot, it's a library of value. There are shelves of ivory tusks, neatly labeled by weight and origin. There are chests of frankincense resin that have crystallized into amber-like gems. But the centerpiece is the gold. It's not loose. It's stacked in bars, ingots, and coins, filling the room with a dull yellow glow that reflects the torchlight. Azana looks around. He's impressed, but in a detached way. He picks up a heavy iron sword from a rack, near the door, a trophy from a defeated Nubian chieftain. He swings it, testing the balance. The air whoosh. This, he says, his voice echoing in the vault, is what built this empire, Mother, iron. Blood, the courage of the Saroit. Safia stops tapping her cane. She turns to him. Her eyes are milky with age, but the gaze is still terrifying. You are a fool, my son, she says softly. Azana freezes. He's a king. No one calls him a fool. He lowers the sword. I have expanded our borders to the confluence of the Niles. I have burned the capital of Meroe. You have spent, she interrupts. You have spent lives. You have spent iron. You have spent time. She hobbles over to a small, unassuming chest in the corner. She struggles to open the lid. Azana steps forward to help her, but she waves him away. She opens it herself. Inside, there are no jewels. There is just a simple, unadorned gold coin. The very first one she minted years ago. The alpha coin, she picks it up with a trembling hand and holds it out to him. Iron rusts, she whispers. Iron breaks in battle. Iron can be turned against you by a stronger arm. She presses the coin into his palm. It's small, cold, and heavy. But this, she continues, this never rusts. This has no weight, yet it can crush a city. This has no edge, yet it can cut the throat of an emperor 3,000 miles away. This is the lesson. The boy king, now the warrior king, needs to understand the source of his power. He thinks his victories come from his tactical brilliance. Sophia is here to remind him that his victories were purchased. Who paid for the iron in that sword? She asks, pointing to the weapon he's holding. Who paid the soldiers who wielded it? Who bought the loyalty of the tribes? Who let you pass through their lands? Azana looks at the coin. He looks at the sword. Rome is dying, she says, her voice gaining strength. Not because they lack swords, they have millions of swords. They are dying because they debased this. She taps the coin in his hand. They lied to their people. They made their gold cheap. And when money is a lie, loyalty becomes a lie. Historians still argue about the exact timing of the fall of Meroe, the rival kingdom to the north, modern Sudan. Did Azana conquer it because he wanted territory, or did he conquer it to secure the trade routes and the iron mines? The economic determinism theory suggests that Sophia's influence meant every war was actually a hostile takeover of resources. Meroe wasn't just an enemy. It was a competitor that needed to be liquidated. Sophia takes the sword from him. It's heavy for her, but she holds it. You can kill a man with this, she admits. But with this ... she points to the gold stacks. You can kill an idea. You can kill a dynasty. You can starve a god. She walks over to a map pinned to a wooden board. It shows the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, the Nile. She traces the trade routes with her bony finger. This is the web I have woven for you, Azana. It is made of silk and spice and trust. If you cut it with your sword, you will fall. She turns to him, her face serious. You are the king now. You will rule alone soon. But promise me one thing. Anything, Azana says, lowering his head. Never dilute the gold, she commands. Never mix it with copper to pay a debt. If the vault is empty, you stop spending. You do not lie to the scale. The moment you lie to the scale, Aksum falls. This is the core of her legacy. It's a strict, almost religious adherence to sound money. It's the reason Aksumite currency remained the dollar of the Middle East long after the empire itself faded. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit for you. There is a legend verified, of course, that the Aksumite treasury had a specific cursed section. Gold that was seized from grave robbers or looted from temples of dark gods was kept separate. It had to be washed not just with water, but with prayer and molten fire. It was believed that dirty money literally carried a spiritual sickness that could infect the rest of the hoard. Safia, in her pragmatic way, probably just melted it down to erase the previous owner's claim. But the superstition kept the guards honest. No one steals cursed gold. Ozana places the sword back on the rack. He keeps the coin. He looks at his mother with a new understanding. He realizes that while he was out playing soldier, she was fighting a war that was infinitely more complex. She was fighting entropy. She was fighting the natural tendency of empires to rot from the inside. I will keep the standard, he vows. Good, she sighs, leaning heavily on her cane. Because there is one more thing you must protect. The collateral, a tunnel that leads even deeper into the mountain. A tunnel that goes to the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. The gold is the body of our wealth, she whispers. But that is the soul. She is talking about the Ark of the Covenant. Now, we are entering the realm of faith and mystery. But in Sophia's worldview, faith is just another form of capital. The Ark isn't just a holy relic, it's the ultimate insurance policy. It is the object that legitimizes the entire dynasty. It proves that God is physically resident in Aksum, and if God banks here, everyone else should too. Take me to it, she says. I want to see it one last time before my eyes fail completely. You follow them into the tunnel. The air gets colder. The smell of gold is replaced by the smell of ancient incense and ozone. You are walking toward the most controversial, debated, and guarded object in human history. You better be on your best behavior, if the legends are true. Getting too close to this thing without the proper clearance doesn't just get you arrested, it gets you vaporized. You leave the metallic silence of the gold vault and step into a different kind of quiet. This isn't the quiet of a bank. It's the quiet of a reactor core. The air here is thick, heavy with the scent of ancient wood and a resin so potent it makes your eyes water. You are walking down a corridor cut straight into the living rock, heading toward the holiest square footage on the African continent. You are approaching the sanctuary of the Ark of the Covenant. Now, before you roll your eyes and think we've wandered into an Indiana Jones script, you have to understand the gravity of this tradition in Ethiopia. For the Aksumites, and the millions of Orthodox faithful who will follow them, this isn't a myth, it is a geographical fact. The Ark isn't lost. It's right here, down the hall, to the left. The tunnel opens up into a small, circular chamber. The walls are covered in tapestries that are so old they are disintegrating into dust, depicting lions, stars, and the seal of Solomon. Standing kneeling in the center of the room, is a single figure. He is the Atan, the guardian. Here is the mainstream historical fact. To this day, in modern Aksum, there is a single monk charged with guarding the Ark in the Chapel of the Tablet. He is nominated by his predecessor. Once he enters the chapel grounds, he never leaves until he dies. He is the only human being on Earth allowed to see the object. Even the patriarch of the church cannot enter. In our story, the guardian is an old man, his skin like parchment stretched over bone. He is blind whether from age, disease, or looking at something he shouldn't have. You don't ask. He hears the cane tapping. He hears the king's heavy tread, who approaches the mercy seat. He rasps. His voice sounds like grinding stones. The king Azana answers, and the regent. In this room, the king is just a tourist. The cloud is thick today, the guardian warns. Do not step past the curtain. You look at the far end of the room. A heavy curtain, woven with gold thread and purple dye, hangs from the ceiling. Behind it there is ... something. You can feel it. It's a low-frequency hum, a vibration that rattles your teeth. The air smells of ozone like the moment before a lightning strike. Safia leans on her cane, staring at the curtain. She isn't praying, she is assessing. It is still here, she whispers. Where would it go? Ozana asks, a bit nervously. Objects of power wander, she says. They seek those who can wield them. It stayed with Moses because he had the law. It stayed with David because he had the sword. It stays with us. ... double quotes, she pauses, because we have the order. This is the secret sauce of the Aksumite claim. The Kibra Nagusta Glory of Kings is the national epic that tells how Menelik I, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, brought the ark from Jerusalem to Ethiopia. It is the founding myth of the Solomonic dynasty. But for Safia, the ark serves a very specific economic function. It is the spiritual collateral. Think about it. Why do people trust paper money today? Because it used to be backed by gold. Why did people trust Aksumite gold? Because it was backed by the king. And who backed the king, God, physically residing in his basement. The ark is the ultimate guarantor of the state's credit rating. As long as Aksum holds the ark, Aksum is the chosen nation. It means their contracts are blessed, their wars are just, and their currency is divine. It is a psychological weapon that tells the world we have the mandate of heaven in a box. Here, as a quirky fringe tidbit for you. There are persistent fringe theories often discussed in hushed tones that the ark is actually a piece of ancient technology, perhaps a capacitor or a power source. The Bible describes it killing people who touch it, glowing and acting like a communication device. Standing here in the flickering torchlight, smelling that electrical ozone scent, you can see why people go down that rabbit hole. The Aten monks are known to die young, often suffering from cataracts and what sounds suspiciously like radiation sickness. Is it holy fire, or is it unshielded energy? Safia doesn't care about the physics, she cares about the leverage. She takes a step closer to the curtain. The hum gets louder. The hair on your arms stands up. It is the anchor, she murmurs to Azana. The gold in the vaults is just metal. It can be melted, stolen, debased. But this is the covenant. As long as this remains, Aksum is the center of the world. She turns to her son. Rome has the bones of Peter. Constantinople has the wood of the cross. But we have the throne of God. Do not forget that distinction. We are not a colony of their faith. We are the source of it. This is the theological firewall she is building. By claiming the ark, Aksum insulates itself from being bullied by the Roman Church. The Pope in Rome can issue all the decrees he wants. Azana can just point downstairs and say, "I'll ask the boss directly." Historians still argue about what is actually behind that curtain. Is it the original Mosaic Ark? Is it a replica, a tablet? Is it a pre-Christian meteor stone that was repurposed? Scholarly consensus tends to lean toward it being a replica or a symbolic object that gained legendary status over centuries. But here's the thing. In the world of belief, the truth doesn't matter. The belief matters. If millions of people believe the ark is there, then the power is real. Azana looks at the curtain with a mixture of reverence and fear. He is the most powerful man in Africa, but he looks small in this room. Do you want to see it? The guardian asks suddenly, his blind eyes staring at nothing. Azana takes a breath. He reaches for the curtain. His hand trembles. No, Safia says sharply. Azana stops. Mystery is powerful only when it is hidden, she says. If you see it, it becomes just a box of wood and gold. If you see it, you will look for flaws. You will see the scratches, the dust. You will see it as a thing. She pulls him back. Let it remain the glory. Let the people imagine it is brighter than the sun. Imagination is stronger than sight. This is her final lesson in statecraft. The power of the symbol relies on the unknown. Just like the value of money relies on the collective faith that it's worth something, the power of the king relies on the mystery of his mandate. She turns to the guardian. "Keep it safe, old man. Keep it hidden until the end of the world," the guardian replies. Safia nods. She turns and begins the long, slow walk back up the tunnel, her cane tapping against the stone. She looks exhausted. The energy of the ark seems to have drained her rather than invigorated her. "I am tired, Ozana," she whispers as they reach the upper levels. The gold is counted. The ships are sailing. The ark is safe. "You have built a world," Mother Ozana says, offering her his arm. "I have built a fortress," she corrects him. "Now you must live in it." They emerge from the underground complex into the blinding light of the Aksumite afternoon. The sun is setting, casting the long shadows of the stele across the city. The great stone fingers point to the sky, monuments to the wealth she engineered. Safia squints against the light. She looks toward the west, toward the setting sun. Her work is done. The silent regent is ready to break her silence in the only way left to her, by becoming a memory. But before she goes, she wants to see the sunset one last time. Not from a palace window, but from the high balcony overlooking the entire city. She wants to see the smoke of the cooking fires, the glint of the gold roofs, the movement of the people she purchased with her brilliance. We are going to join her for the final curtain call. It's going to be a quiet end to a loud life. You are standing on the highest terrace of the Palace of Dungar, the Palace of the West. The air up here is thin and crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. It is the golden hour, that brief magical window when the fierce African sun softens into a bruised purple and the shadows of the stele stretch across. The city, like the hands of a clock, counting down the centuries. Safia is sitting in a chair carved from a single piece of ivory. It's fitting. The material she used to strangle the Roman economy is now supporting her failing frame. She is wrapped in a shawl of Chinese silk, dyed with Tyrian purple, a garment that, in Rome, would be illegal for anyone but the emperor to wear. Here, it's just something to keep the chill off an old woman's shoulders. She is watching the city breathe. Below her, the capital is bustling. You see the smoke rising from thousands of hearths. You hear the distant, rhythmic chanting of the monks in the new cathedral, their voices blending with the lowing of cattle and the shouting of merchants. It is the sound of a civilization at its absolute zenith. Ozana has left on a campaign to the west, to the Noba lands. He is securing the borders, chasing glory. Safia is alone, save for her servants, and the memories that crowd around her like ghosts. She looks toward the marketplace. It is still open, illuminated by oil lamps. She can't see the details with her failing eyes, but she knows what is happening there. She knows that men are trading gold for glass, iron for cotton, frankincense for favor. She knows that the coins changing hands bear her son's face and the cross of Christ. She smiles, a dry, cracking movement of her lips. She won. There wasn't no victory of swords. There was no single battle where she crushed the Roman legions. It was a victory of patience. She outlasted them. She watched the emperors rise and fall like tides. Diocletian, Constantine, Constantius, Julian. They all tried to fix the world with decrees and wars. She fixed it with a ledger. A servant approaches, carrying a bowl of broth. Safia waves it away. She isn't hungry for food. She is hungry for assurance. "The courier," she rasps, "from Aegilis. Did he arrive?" "Yes, Great Mother," the servant whispers. "The ships from India arrived on the tide. The warehouses are full, and the Roman ships, few, Mother, and they pay in bullion." "They have no coin," Safia nods. It is the answer she wanted. Rome is still the customer, but Aksum is the store. The dynamic she engineered has calcified into reality. But as she looks out over this golden empire, a shadow crosses her face. You see, she knows the secret of gold. It is heavy, and heavy things tend to sink. She knows that the very wealth she created is a poison of its own. She has seen the young nobles wearing silk and complaining about the heat. She has seen the generals arguing over plunder instead of strategy. She has seen the church growing fat on tithes. The discipline of the silent regent, the austerity that built this machine, is fading. Her son is a great king, yes, but his sons and their sons. Will they understand that the gold must be dug, not just spent? Historians still argue about the decline of Aksum. Was it environmental degradation? Was it the rise of Islam cutting off the trade routes centuries later? Or was it, as some suggest, the resource curse? Did the sheer influx of easy wealth make the empire lazy, dependent on foreign luxury, and vulnerable to internal rot? Safia seems to sense this future. She rubs the arm of her ivory chair. It feels smooth, polished, perfect. But ivory is dead bone. It cannot grow. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit for you. In Aksumite archaeology, there is a massive megalithic structure called the Nefas Mochia, or the exit of the wind. It consists of a single slab of stone weighing hundreds of tons held up by other stones. Legends say it houses a secret chamber. Some local traditions whisper that Sofior, the figure she represents in legend, wasn't buried in a normal tomb, but was laid to rest in a secret cavity beneath this massive stone, surrounded not by gold, but by her ledgers. Taking the secrets of the economy to the grave, she leans her head back. The sky is turning a deep indigo. The first stars are appearing, the same stars that guided the ships she sent to India, the same stars that watched her caravans cross the desert. "I am tired," she whispers to the empty air. She thinks of the Roman envoy she humiliated. She thinks of the poison in the cup. She thinks of the ark humming in the darkness below. She realizes that she has been holding the weight of the world for 40 years. She has been the dam holding back the flood of chaos, and now she is leaking. She closes her eyes. The sounds of the city begin to fade. The smell of the wood smoke drifts away. In her mind, she isn't in the palace anymore. She is back at the port of Agilis, a young woman standing on the dock, smelling the salt and the shark meat. She sees a ship sailing out, its sails full of wind, heading into the unknown. She isn't afraid. She has balanced the books. The audit is complete. Her breathing slows. The hand resting on the ivory armrest relaxes. The silk shawl slips slightly from her shoulders. The sun dips below the horizon. The golden light vanishes, replaced by the cool silver light of the moon. The servant steps forward. Sensing the silence, he touches her hand. It is cold. He doesn't scream. He doesn't wail. He simply bows his head. He knows that the silence has finally reclaimed the silent regent, but the machine she built keeps running. Down in the market, a merchant strikes a deal. Up in the mint, a hammer strikes a coin. On the border, an elephant trumpets. The empire doesn't stop just because its architect has left the building. Safia is gone, but she left something behind, something more durable than stone. She left a story of how a woman with a stylus defeated an empire with a sword, and she left the gold. You turn away from the peaceful figure in the chair. You look down at the city one last time. It glows in the moonlight, a jewel in the darkness of history. It looks eternal, but we know better. We know that gold gets buried. We know that cities get abandoned. We know that stories get forgotten. We are going to jump forward now, not a few years, not a few decades. We are jumping thousands of years. We are going to the present day. We are going to get our hands dirty in the soil of modern Ethiopia, because there is one last piece of evidence waiting for us. A time capsule that proves everything we just witnessed actually happened. Grab your shovel. We're going treasure hunting. You put down the ancient scrolls and pick up a trowel. The air conditioning of the museum archives is gone, replaced by the dry, dusty heat of the Tigray region in modern-day Ethiopia. You are kneeling in a trench, your knees aching, sweat dripping onto the lens of your sunglasses. You are at an excavation site near the ancient town of Yeha, just a short drive from Aksum. The wind here is relentless, carrying the fine red grit that coats everything: your clothes, your skin, your teeth. It's the same wind that blew through Sophia's palace. But the palace is gone now, reduced to foundations and memories. You are scraping at a layer of compacted earth. The soil color changes, a telltale sign of human disturbance. You switch to a brush. Gentle strokes, scrape, swish, scrape. You hit something hard. It's not a stone. It sounds hollow. Your heart does that little jump that every treasure hunter lives for. You brush faster. The shape emerges. It's a clay vessel, cracked but intact, the size of a melon. It was buried under the floor of what used to be a wealthy merchant, Esvilla, maybe a descendant of Hani, trying to hide his assets from a later tax collector, or perhaps a family fleeing the armies of Queen Gudet centuries later. You carefully pry the lid loose. The clay crumbles, and then the sun hits it. It doesn't look like much at first, just a pile of dirty discs. But you pick one up and rub it with your thumb. The dirt flakes away effortlessly because gold doesn't bond with soil. It emerges from the earth exactly as it went in. Brilliant, untarnished, eternal. You are holding the smoking gun. It's an Aksumite gold coin from the reign of King Ozana. You squint at it in the harsh sunlight. On the obverse, you see the king's profile, holding a scepter. On the reverse, the cross, and around the edge, the Greek inscription, Toito Apec, THX, WP, A may this please the country. This isn't just money. This is the weapon we've been talking about for the last 3 hours. This small, heavy disc is the artillery shell that Sophia fired at the Roman economy. You realize the staggering reality of what you are holding. This specific piece of metal was mined by the slaves in the riverbeds, minted under the watchful eye of the silent regent, and used to buy silk, loyalty, and silence. It traveled. Maybe it sat in a Roman senator's secret stash. Maybe it bought a mercenary sword in Yemen. Maybe it paid for the stone that built the Great Stele. Here's the mainstream historical fact that hits you. We find these coins everywhere. In 1999, a hoard was found in a monastery in Debre Damo. But even more telling, hundreds of them have been found in southern India, in the ruins of the Vakataka dynasty. They have been found in Sri Lanka. They have been found in the Levant. Why is that important? Because you don't find Roman coins in India from this period, in these quantities. You find Aksumite coins. That proves Sophia's strategy worked. For a century, her currency was the trusted medium of exchange for the entire Indian Ocean trade network. She didn't just participate in the global economy. She dictated the terms of it. You dig deeper into the pot. There are dozens of them, a fortune. But as you sift through them, you notice something melancholic. The deeper you go, the later the dates. You find coins from King Caleb, Ozana's successor, still high purity, still gold. But then, near the bottom or top, depending on how they were stacked, you find coins from the later Kings Gursum Arma. These later coins are different. They are paler. The gold is mixed with silver. The edges are rougher. You are seeing the decline physically manifest in your hand. The resource curse finally caught up with them. The Persian conquest of Yemen cut off the trade routes. The rise of the Arab caliphates eventually isolated Aksum from the Red Sea. The gold mines ran dry, or the control over them was lost. The empire began to debase its currency, just like Rome did. Sophia's warning, never lie, to the scale was eventually forgotten, and when the gold purity dropped, the empire faded. The center of power moved south into the mountains of Lalibela, where they carved churches out of rock instead of minting coins out of gold. They traded economic dominance for spiritual isolation. But holding this Ozana coin right here, right now, you feel a connection that spans 1,700 years. You can almost feel the warmth of Sophia's hand. You can sense the terrifying intelligence that realized, long before Adam Smith or John Maynard Keynes, that the true power of a nation isn't its borders, but its balance sheet. You look up from the trench. The local kids are watching you from the edge of the excavation, curious about the Ferengi digging in the dirt. A donkey brays in the distance. The smell of coffee bunna drifts from a nearby hut. The empire is gone. The Stele are fallen, though one was returned from Rome and re-erected, a final posthumous victory. The elephants are a memory. But the story survived. It survived because of these indestructible little golden receipts. They are the proof that once there was a queen who looked at the map of the world, saw that she was on the edge of it, and decided to move the center. You slip the coin into an evidence bag. It clinks against the plastic, a tiny sound. But if you listen closely, it sounds like the closing of a ledger. The audit is finally, truly complete.